It's 7 o'clock in Southern California, and time for the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable for May 18th, 2017. This is Mike in 6HKH, your net control. This roundtable is held every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time at 0200 UTC on XRF 002 Alpha and a constellation of X reflectors, including XRF 310A, XRF 555A, and XLX 212 Alpha. This is a technical net dedicated to D-Star and open digital systems. It is a group effort. To join the discussion, start a topic, or ask a question, please key up when I call for stations. I will pause regularly to let you key up, and I ask that participating stations do the same. Now, we do not take formal check-ins or do a roll call to give us more time to talk D-Star. Net Control is online. Go to roundtable.tech, T-E-C-H. Roundtable is all one word, .tech. Just put that in the URL or the address field of your favorite browser, and it'll take you to the landing page of this forum's forum board, this net's forum board, I should say. And there you'll find a real-time chat feature that's called the Shout Box, which you can use to contact me as well as to post information that's relevant to a topic at hand, such as links and quick notes. We ask that stations offering a web address in conjunction with their presentation post the URL or DNX in the shout box so that those listening now or later can link to that website or document location. Again, the URL to find the Roundtable forum board and its shout box is roundtable is all one word, .tech, T-E-C-H. At the close of the roundtable, tonight's shout box is moved to the shout box history above the general roundtable discussion board. Podcast listeners get the shout box downloaded automatically. How cool is that? So first up on tonight's Thursday night D-Star roundtable is 60 seconds of D-Star basics. And tonight on 60 Seconds of D-Star Basics, we're going to talk about the minimum internet speed for using a hotspot. That is always a concern, and people are worried about the upload speed or download speed, and they worry about going from perhaps a digital subscriber line, DSL, be it copper pair, fiber optic, or something in between, to perhaps something on their cable. That's provided. Sometimes the cable is faster. Just keep in mind, though, that your speed on your cable is dependent upon the number of users, whereas the speed on the telephone or DSL line is more consistent and is limited, frankly, by the length or distance that you have from the station. So each has its pluses. However, the answer is that the D-Star data stream is only 4.8 kilobytes, kbps. So a 400 kbps link is almost 2 times the magnitude that is needed. Now, this is, of course, assuming that there isn't a lot of latency or jitter that's, going to get into the reliability of the connection, or that the connection is reliable, for that matter. And, it also depends upon what it's being shared with. But many people, and we've heard testimonials here during this roundtable, use a portable hotspot on just a simple 3G cellular data connection, and that works just fine. Just keep in mind that most 3G's minimum speed is 400 kbps. So, given that the D-Star stream is only 4.8 kbps, that's plenty of speed. Now, that doesn't include, of course, the satellite internet connection, which could be different, but usually the bandwidth issues, if there are any, is related to the vulnerability of the satellite transmissions. And again, you're looking at jitter and other things like that. So, actually, for internet for a hotspot, unless somehow you're still subscribing to um, Earthlink or some ancient system that really is a dial-up where you might run into trouble. I don't think you can even get that anymore. But just a standard minimum DSL or cable internet connection is more than adequate to providing the appropriate bandwidth for a hotspot. And I want to thank the W6KD board and W6KD for providing some of the information that form the basis of tonight's 60 Seconds of D-Star Basics. And that is 60 seconds or thereabouts of D-Star Basics. Now, if you want to quibble with anything you've heard tonight about from 60 Seconds of D-Star Basics or on any other topic that we discuss because you think it's either not correct or there's newer, better information or perhaps I misspoke, feel free to key up and challenge it. I'm not going to take any offense to it, and nobody else should as well, because we try to get out the facts. We don't guess or speculate or talk about things that might be happening way down the road that is just smoke and maybe vaporware. We talk about reality as best we can. We do try to get out the crystal globe from time to time and try to get an idea as to where certain concepts are going. But beyond that, we try to get to the facts. So feel free to bring this up if you have any questions about tonight's 60 Seconds or any other topic that you may think is over with but requires further discussion. So there you go. And in perusing the D-Star, Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable Forum, I don't see any updates in the current discussions folder that should be brought to your attention or discussed. I didn't have any information from stations that wanted to add to that. It looks like the other general roundtable discussion folders or the forums are just pretty much current as of last week, keeping in mind that, today is, I think, technically the first day of Dayton. I know the gates begin to open up fully on Friday tomorrow, but I think they consider today more than just the arrival day. There are things that are cranking over there, so we may have a great many people that are traveling or already at Dayton, and certainly we'll entertain anybody that wants to key up from Dayton and tell us what they found. In any event, I think we should probably just move right on forward to the follow-up to last week's discussions section, which is usually right after we go through the forum board, but I don't have anything there in particular that I think leads to a discussion. So let's see if there are any follow-ups, that is, updates, corrections, anything that perhaps you found out about the topic last week that wasn't available. Maybe you were listening to the podcast and are able to join us live tonight and would like to add to that discussion. So if we talked about it last Thursday and you'd like to talk about it some more or follow up on it, let's take you now. Stations, please key up.
W.
I have W6KD and KF0TW. First, we say hello to Bob. W6KD, go ahead.
Hey, good evening, Mike. Yeah, I do need to correct some things, and well, since I was the source for the material in the 60 Seconds of D-Star Basic, there's some more relevant information, much more to the story in terms of bandwidth usage by hotspots in particular over the internet. Although the data stream is in fact a very, very tiny 4.8 kilobaud, the overhead involved in internet in the transmission of the packetized data via the internet is surprisingly large. It was well, I don't have the source here right in front of me, but but the numbers work out to something on the order of about 8 times larger than the actual D-Star data stream itself. So 4.8 kilobaud is what comes out of your radio, but what comes out of your hotspot is closer to 38 to 40 kilobaud because of Ethernet. Basically, you've got Ethernet header. You've got a lot of overhead data. You got IP address and encapsulation information that's used in packetizing the data that's being transported over the internet. And because the amount of data is so small, these little chunks of ambi data are very, very small in relation to the amount of overhead. And so what you end up with is a very, very inefficient transport of the information. So even though your radio is only streaming data out at 4.8 kilobaud, your hotspot is actually streaming data out at closer to 40 kilobaud. And but that said, in terms of modern bandwidth on a cellular link or especially on any kind of a wired link, it's still a drop in the bucket. Let me change hands here. But anyway, yeah, I've done a little experimenting, and the theory is borne out in the numbers. If you actually run some packet tracing and look at the amount of data that a hotspot uses there, so I guess I'm correcting myself here, but yeah, hotspot uses close. I'd say 40 kilobaud is a good rough number to use, and in fact we're looking at maybe finding a more efficient way of transporting that data that would allow either perhaps instituting some sort of redundancy or just doing it more efficiently by packetizing more of the data in larger chunks. But that's a whole other discussion and fairly technically detailed and probably not suited for this venue anyway. So anyway, back to the net. W6KD.
Bob, thanks for clarifying that and the update and overhead. Well, we've talked about overhead from time to time, not a lot, and it may be something worth mentioning without getting into, as you suggest, the packetizing data, which is something that perhaps should be done, but isn't being done yet, as I understand it. Next is KF0TW. Gary, thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mike and the net. My key up was maybe inadvertent, but I was intending to check in anyway. I imagine the open spot and its capabilities and how to do it are old information by now, but I selected D-Extra this evening on the screen on the dashboard for the open spot, and it came up as before I had linked to one of your Constellation reflectors, X reflectors. Anyway, I enjoy the podcast, always months behind, and thanks again. Just wanted to give an open spot report, I guess. KF0TW.
Alrighty, well look, don't worry about it, and I appreciate you turning what would otherwise have been an inadvertent key up, which, by the way, if that happens, just say so, and I'll take you off the list. It's no harm, no foul, we do it. But is there something on the open spot that you'd like to either address or ask a question about or discuss? I can certainly add it to the list. KF0TW, go ahead.
Well, not really. I can't stay in tonight. Need to turn in, and I'll just make a comment, I guess, that profiles can be, I believe, I may experiment with this, can be set up so that I could choose either D+, D extra, or XLX protocol on two different profiles, and I think that would make, if that hasn't already been reported, operating from the radio pretty seamless. thanks, though. I'll just throw that out there, and if I won't be around if anyone wants to talk about it, but I can always be reached anyway. KF0TW.
Well, we'll see where this goes. I think the last we talked at length about the open spot was in April, on April 20th, and really that was an update on to some things that we learned about it, and we discussed how to operate the open spot on the MRD Star and the Yaesu Fusion, and there were some issues with regard to can you unlink it, and profiles were described as one way to get around some of the drawbacks, so to speak, versus using, for example, a DV Mega and Raspberry Pi MDVM combination to be able to have a multi-mode hotspot or access point is probably the better way to describe it, which the open spot is without anything further. So we'll see what happens, and thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. All right, stations who wish to follow up on last week's discussions as an update, questions, did you listen to the podcast and you're scratching your head about something we discussed? Let's talk about it now. Please key up. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard, so we'll move on. Now, let me move something out of the way. So, Dayton, there are probably a lot of stations and routes to Dayton, and, I don't usually like just calling on them because, I don't call on specific stations, but I thought we'd spend just a few moments to see if there's any scheduling changes that D-Star aficionados would be interested in. I haven't seen anything, although obviously I'm not going. At least I'm not going to drop what I'm doing and get on a plane or get in a car. I'm hoping to hear some news from Dayton from some of our roundtable regulars who will either text or message or hopefully maybe send some photos or videos of things that they see that would be worthy of knowing about it now and working it up for next Thursday. But let me just pause to see if there are any updates or changes, especially given that it's supposed to rain all 3 days and maybe with some thunderstorms. So if anyone has any updates and would like to pass them on, we'll take a moment to do that. Please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. Well, let me just see if there are stations listening that are either en route to at Dayton, are packing or trying to listen to the roundtable for entertainment while en route, or if you're already there and you're disgusted and would like to tell us what you see, it might be fun. So, Dayton attendees, any who may be listening, please key up now. Well, just a minute. Now you can key up.
AB4WS.
AB4WS. Thanks for keying up. Go ahead.
N6 Century KH in the group AB4WS. Real fine, Mike. I was just getting ready to turn the radio off. Just about finished packing and hit the hay and get up early in the morning and grab 3 or 4 other guys that I'm going to pick up and travel northward to Dayton tomorrow. And anxious to see what the new venue provides for us. They're forecasted rain today, but we only got 1/100 of an inch. It was a little bit of rain off and on a little bit this morning, but for the most part, it was mostly dry. And so I'm hoping that's what we see tomorrow. But you never can tell with Dayton. I've been at Dayton where I've had snow and torrential rain and got sunburned. Sometimes all in the same weekend. So it'll be interesting to see. with that, I'm going to say 73's Mike, and I'll listen to the rest of this on the podcast. I hope you don't mind, because, I'm going to have to get up early. And you know me and my age, I certainly need my sleep. N6HKH in the group, AB, 4WS, Big Bone, Kentucky.
Well, have a safe trip, and I understand that, frankly. If I could go to bed now, I probably would and get my beauty rest, but now I can do that perhaps sleeping in tomorrow. So just before you go, what's the travel time to Dayton? I call it Dayton, even though it's Xenia, I guess, Greene County. Just AB4WS, if you can let us know, and then you can, well, pull the curtain.
I'm located in northern Kentucky, about 10 miles, 15 miles south of Cincinnati, Ohio. So it's about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive, depending on how we hit traffic. So it's not too bad of a venture. Over.
Well, good. Just out of curiosity is all that was. Well, bring your rain gear just in case. I mean, I'm reporting the weather from earlier today. In fact, ARRL was even making contingency plans because they won't be able to park people in certain parts of the fairgrounds that is on-site parking because if it is raining, the soccer field and other areas, they don't want anybody on it. Just like on a golf course, you can run your carts on a nice, clean, sunny day if the marshal lets you, but otherwise, if it's soggy and wet, you get into trouble running those carts down the greens and onto the, anywhere that is roped off. So, same sort of thing, and they're sweating bricks about getting people to park off site, and I guess somehow make it in. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting. New venue. Thanks for checking in, and have a great time. All right, any of the stations that are en route to Dayton or are presently there would like to at least check in? We'll take you now. Please, Kia. All right, nothing seen or heard, and looking forward to getting some excellent reports next Thursday from Dayton, hopefully about the latest on D-Star and open digital systems and multi-mode devices. Maybe there's some new business some new product that's out there. Maybe ICOM will finally come to its senses, or at least get drunk and announce that they're going to take a different approach to D-Star products. We'll have to see. I mean, you have to be there to find out, I suppose. In any event, last week we learned that the ID4100A, ICOM's latest D-Star Mobile, which is basically a big brother to the ID51A Plus 2, was released. And I was hoping that maybe one or two stations might have gotten their hands on it, but we didn't have any takers, so I thought I'd check to see if there's a station with that new radio, the ID4100A, who would like to give us a report. Hopefully you've unboxed it. We'll take it if you just have looked at it, but I prefer to have someone that perhaps has plugged it into a power supply and then attached an antenna and can give us their impression. So all of us can at least have that information at hand before we think to pluck down our money on that fairly expensive radio, although I noticed that HRO did put it on sale during Dayton, so there is some savings to be had, and maybe nobody bought one waiting for that. I don't know. But anyway, if you have the ID4100 and would like to give us a test drive on the air, so to speak, not that you don't have to key up on it, but that would be cool. But at least tell us what you think. Stations, please key up.
KE0AYJ.
T0AYJ. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
AA0RX via K0AYJ's truck and hotspot. Anyway, we're over here in Xenia. We just had dinner, and we had a blast, and just didn't get the chunk in there before when you asked the prior question there. Sorry. Fire us, I guess. Anyway, we're over here having a ball. The 4100 we can't really reiterate too much till tomorrow and the next day, but we will come back with some more answers for that radio and the other stuff that's happening at Hamvention. So anyway, we did see George and Tommy and video cameras and all, and we had dinner out there, and we're just returning Andy K0AYJ and AA0RX, returning to our camp spot for the evening. And tomorrow we get to go out real early, and we're not exactly Gary Pierce, but we'll give you an update next week probably. AA0RX, just wanted to get us both in along.
Hey, no problem. The fact that I move on to another topic doesn't mean anything if you want to key up regarding something that I was calling for. So I think I heard you say you're camping out, really? How's the weather? AA0RX, go ahead.
Well, we got 74 degrees under clear skies, and it's not too humid. It's just nice out here. So Xenia is the first time I've been here. I've never been to Dayton before, but we had dinner in Dayton. Dinner was excellent, and it's green and beautiful. This looks like Americana at its finest out here. A lot of farms, and it's just absolutely beautiful in this neck of the woods. So next year, probably coming back. But we're having a ball. But like I said, tomorrow, Andy and I will be at the Ham Nation booth from 3 to 4, both days, greeting people, and we're going to tell everybody about the Pi Zero W and the DVAP. I'll have that in my shirt pocket and everything we know. But I did bump into K6JM tonight at the D-Star meet and greet, actually. And Robin Cutshaw, I guess, was there. We missed him, but Kenwood was led to be the star there. I guess Kenwood was there talking about stuff. I didn't get to see any of that, but that's what we were told by K6JM. Anyway, back to net. AA0RX. Excited about the next couple of days here at Hamvention.
Well, okay, so actually you got there yesterday. It was the meet and greet last night, I take it, and well, listen, you guys, you're going to have a great time, I'm sure. I'm glad to hear this clear skies. Hopefully that'll stay that way. It's no fun to camp when it's raining, and of course that's going to put a damper. So just, I assume the swap meet guys are setting up. That's a really big to-do. Are they outdoors? And have you seen anybody take any precautions in case it does rain? Back to you, or to Gary or Andy, either one. Go ahead.
Yeah, roger that. They're setting up in tents. Most of it's going to be covered up there, and they are setting up tonight. We were at the meet and greet tonight. Not yesterday, but tonight is a meet and greet for D-Star. So we went out to dinner, and lo and behold, Andy and I were coming out of the Drury Inn, and George and Tommy were headed over to the meet and greet there. But we've had a blast so far. Tonight's the meet and greet for D-Star, and tomorrow is actually at the Drury Inn. It's going to be what is going to be, Andy, there? D-Star Forum tomorrow night. So we're going to tell them everything we know about you guys and us. We are going to move in. So anyway, hope to fill you in a little bit more a little later on. But we're out here enjoying the countryside and with pictures. Oh, man. Full frontal. Nope, I can't go that far. Anyway, AA0RX, back to net control.
Okay, guys. Well, yeah, if you, with your report, if you'd like to have us post pictures, we'll find some place to host them, and that way we can do a show and tell, kind of a slideshow over the radio of sorts, and find a place to park them for people to look at if you'd like to do that. So have a great time, and it sounds like you're having a great time anyway, and listen, whatever you can help us out on next Thursday and a report from Dayton will be greatly appreciated, and you guys take care. Again, you gotta have fun. How can you not have fun at Dayton? Sort of, lightning striking and blowing the whole place to smithereens, but short of that. All right, appreciate you checking in. Anyone else at Dayton that would like to key up and check in, we'll do a long pause and see if we can catch anybody else. Please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. Well, if you are dating and you're in the middle of whatever, eating, drinking, partying, playing poker, um, looking at the stars or wandering around aimlessly, and you want to key up during the course of the round table and talk to us, tell us what's going on, feel free to do so. That would be an open topic throughout tonight, and interrupt whatever we're talking about at any time. All right. So, does anyone have an ID 4100A? I know that somebody has to have one of those. They've actually sold some. I did check on that. Not a lot, but they just came out. So, if you have a 4100A, an ICOM ID 4100A, we'd like to hear what you think. Please, key up now.
KE0AYJ.
Well, I hope you didn't run out and get one just now. KE0AYJ, go ahead.
Good evening to the group. Andy here tonight. Gary's sitting in the other seat. So I'm driving and talking at the same time, so forgive the interruptions there if any traffic pops up. But one important thing that JM mentioned that we want to pass along to you, be looking for some changes coming out on the Plus 2 and possibly affecting the 4100 with some workings with ICOM and Robin Cutshaw. And we're talking the functionality for reflectors. Something's going to happen here fairly quickly on that, it looks like. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Just a little word I wanted to pop in there with. No, didn't buy a 4100, not going to. I'm happy where I'm at. KE0AYJ, back to net.
Well, that's a rumor I don't think we can let slide without a little bit more. So, for those that don't have a 51 Plus 2 or the 2 Plus, what is it about the functionality for reflectors that is allegedly, ripe for change? KE0AYJ, go ahead.
Well, I think he was particularly referencing the terminal and access point modes where you can only go to a repeater, and the functionality of that might change to the point where it looks like it's going to change to the point where it's going to be fully functional into reflectors using the access point and terminal mode.
Oh, okay. Well, that would certainly be an improvement, but it's still a cable-based connection. Any way of getting around that? Are they even interested in it? Back to you.
Yeah, you probably want to refer that to K6JM when he pops in. I think he's on his way back to the hotel. Don't know if he's going to make that tonight. I believe he said he was not because he just got some brainstorming going on. And he's thinking seriously about some things on that nature. But that was the word that they were there talking about. So that's the best I'm going to be able to tell you without having more information on it.
Well, we'll take that. That's pretty good. It sounds like it's going to be a firmware update, so it wouldn't hold back people who feel obligated to get one of those radios. So, yeah, I have not heard anyone voluntarily say that they're going to buy an ID 4100A. There was a station in Texas some time ago who had the ID 51 Plus 2 and was describing it in favorable terms, realizing the limitations. But, he liked the fact that it was a new radio and had Bluetooth and looked better and smelled better and had a better feel to it. And there were a few features that would be an improvement to any D-Star radio. And I was looking forward to getting a 4100. Of course, there are those that would buy any new radio. It's just one of those things. But it's still pretty pricey and as configured, is not terribly useful. But it's still a new radio. So, not that I'm talking people out of it. Nevertheless, is what I should be saying, that people were not happy and were not eager to get one. There still have got to be stations that, in fact, have purchased them. I noticed in the Yahoo groups several stations that are already, well, complaining about not being able to do certain things and having just some nightmares over, or questions really, about how to put it to use, and not finding what they expected from the promotional material. So, if you have a 4100, please key up now.
KM6JEE.
KM6LEE, welcome. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, it's Keith over here. I just want to say it's nothing about the new radio, but to show you the power of the hobby. Two of my buds just got their ticket, and they actually left California today and are heading out there. So Bill and Larry are in the car as we speak, and maybe they'll be keying up at some point to give you an update.
Hey, pass the word. Get on any of the reflectors or a local repeater that's carrying this net. Tell them to key up. They can break in the middle of pretty much any discussion. We want to hear what's going on in Dayton. Live vicariously, I say. All right, well, we'll see what happens. I take it that you did not make the trek, KM6 JEE. Go ahead.
That's correct, Mike. We're just going to wait to see what they have to say. It should be interesting. I'm sure they'll have picks from being out on the road. And if I know my buds Larry and Bill, they'll definitely tear it up once they get to Ohio. So I haven't even looked up their call sign yet. It's that new, but they decided to get in on the hobby. And bingo, they just hit the car, like I said, today and heading out from Los Angeles.
Well, good for them. You know, I just hadn't thought that one way to promote amateur radio and to encourage people to study and get their license is that they get to go to Dayton. I just hadn't heard that pitch, but why not? Then again, if you're excited about getting your license and passing the test, why not, don't even put anything between yourself and your license and your excitement about it. Go right to Dayton. It makes perfect sense to me. All right, Keith, I appreciate it. Anyone else at Dayton? Well, let's do this. If you're at Dayton, just key up. And if you know somebody's at Dayton, call them and tell them to key up. But we're still looking for 4100 A owners. I guess there may not be anybody. I mean, it could be that everybody's at Dayton, and it's just the way it goes. But last time we're going to check on this. If you have a 4100 ICOM and, you've done more than just pop the box open, we'd like to hear from you. Please key up.
K6KD.
K6KD. John, welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, Mike in the net. And I don't have a 4100. I don't plan on getting one, but I would be interested in hearing if anybody that got the 4100 deluxe version, if they were enjoying those deluxe features. It looks like a ham radio outlet has both of them. For $399, I guess the sale price for the 4100, and $499 for the deluxe version. So that must be a deluxe version. Must be pretty good. And just as a comment on Keith, if your friends left LA today, unless there's a couple of them, just casual driving during the day is a good solid 3 days. I suppose if you drive, take turns and drive through the night, you can probably do it in maybe a little bit under 2 days. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, back to net. K6KD.
NEW6OS.
Okay, John. Well, I think the difference between the non-deluxe version and the deluxe version is what? The mounting bracket? I'm sure we'll get that sorted out. I have NE9MA, and W6OSO. First, we welcome NE9MA to the roundtable. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. This is Charlie. I was just listening. I didn't realize I had keyed up, but now that I'm on, tonight I'm experimenting with DRATs and sending out text messages with it. In fact, I'll try to send one right now. Anyway, I'm having fun doing that, and DRATs is a application written by developer Ham in the Seattle EOC purpose, and it's working pretty good. I'm able to see a bunch of hams using the software connected to the internet directly, and tonight I'm actually getting some mapping positions from people on this net.
So you're operating DRATs and sending text using the reflector. And so how are you monitoring DRATs? Do you have a separate laptop that you're using, and is it connected to the radio you're on? Just a little bit more explanation would be appropriate. If you care to do it, go ahead.
So I'm in an EOC building. We have a desktop hooked up to the internet, and the first pass of getting DRATs to work was just to get DRATs talking and chatting in chat rooms over the internet. Tonight, I got working an ICOM 2820 using a data cable connected to that PC and reconfiguring DRATs to talk over the radio.
Very cool. So I noticed in your text field that you have EMAEOC. Care to tell us what that is?
So I'm in the Emergency Operations Center in Naperville, Illinois. It's where high level is like someone like the mayor, the police chief, fire chief would get together in the Emergency Operations Center during disaster type of event. Let's say in the Illinois area, that might be a tornado. They manage the emergency from the Emergency Operations Center, talking to a command post that might be on scene. Hope that helps.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think most of us know about EOCs, and we have a number of participants that are part of that. So how does D-Star figure into the EOC commitment that the amateur team that you've got provides to the Naperville, Illinois Emergency Management Group? I mean, is D-Star integrated? That is, it's something that you plan on using, or do you just happen to have a 2820 there just because? Back to you.
Well, we were fortunate to purchase two 2820s, both with the D-Star module, about a year ago. Our team isn't necessarily the strongest technical. We're still working on getting our operator skills up. Having said that, we've been playing with things like FLA Digi and some other types of digital communication. And just DRATs is just another tool that we can use to possibly deliver information. So in a disaster, we're not going to say it's got to be ham radio, for example. We might use a fax machine. It's more important to get the information across. But DRATs offers connectivity to an email system, connectivity where some of the ICS command forms are predefined, or we can build our own, and we can send them back and forth. So one scenario we're thinking is if we had a Red Cross shelter opened, and we set our 2820 mobile Go kit with a ham operator to that location, they could fill out forms, send us text messages, send us emails through our local D-Star repeaters and get that information to the EOC and vice versa.
Yeah, DRAS is a common part of most INCOM protocols. So have you had any good luck sending DRAS over the repeaters? Certainly having an internet connection makes it lickety split, but there's been some debate over its usefulness on D-Star repeaters, unless, of course, you clear everybody out of there and try to give it a whirl. So has that been successful, and have you also had other stations connected to the repeater by reflector, and if that made any difference in transmitting DRAS data? And finally, while I'm loading you up, and you can tell me to knock it off and go about your way if you like, but I do appreciate you keying up. It works best if you can, connect to a cell phone and otherwise get into the internet, which, that would be the best way. But I'm just curious if you've given it a wing on how it worked out, both repeater and reflector. Back to you.
Well, our game plan is roughly to use D-Star Simplex to handle traffic locally, and then to expand ourselves out, we would like to go through the local repeaters in the Chicagoland area and reach out to other areas. We do know that it may not be widespread and popular, but for example, the National Hurricane Center in Florida uses D-Star and DRAS, and there are other EOCs across the country that use it. Since tonight was the first time I've been able to get the ICOM working with the DRAS, we have a lot more experimentation to do, but the breakthrough is that I can send text messages out, and like I said earlier, I'm receiving some of the text messages that are being broadcast on this net tonight, including lat long, and I can see immediately where those stations are across the country.
Very cool. Well, congratulations on your work there, in the sense that it involves time, but it's also a lot of fun as part of what we do. In fact, I was just reading an article that, and I'm not sure if it's source, but ARRL reprinted it, and it's entitled that, well, they're referring to an article that links amateur radio growth to emergency communications. And that in Emergency Management magazine, there's the source, and its article entitled Emergency Communications Driving Increase in Amateur Radio Operators, it relates that the interest for both new and current amateur radio stations, which basically have just been treading water and finding nothing particularly exciting, has been to be part of the emergency communications, or IMCOM, as it's sometimes described. And it seems to me that is something that, I found it interesting that is driving interest in amateur radio and getting people to sign up. So that's pretty cool. All right, appreciate you being with us and checking in. And if anything else comes up, or if you choose to maybe tell us another time status and how things are going, we're always interested in hearing about it, because this is a D-Star net. And we'll talk to you again, Charlie. Let's get to W6OSO before he vaporizes. Mike, thanks for standing by. Go ahead. All right, Mike, I got you keyed up. I recognized you. I had you from before, and I just held you back a little bit, so W6OSO, go ahead. Well, I hope that this is a simple problem that he's facing right now. I didn't get a key up the second time I called for you, so I didn't get your key up after my call the first time. And we'll give you a few moments to get things in order. While you do that, let me call for stations who have, well, let's just see if anyone else has anything for the roundtable. We were trying to look for someone to tell us more about the 4100A if they bought it. And, we'll take inadvertent key ups on other topics in between. I don't think it's going to be one of those nights since most people are en route to Dayton, thinking about Dayton, sleeping in, getting ready to go to Dayton, or aren't going to Dayton but want to daydream about Dayton. Stations, please key up. Alrighty, we'll end our 4100 inquiry there. Although, I just went to the ICOM website because there are two radios. There's a basic and I guess a deluxe, and I understand that the deluxe includes the mounting bracket and the for, I guess, maybe for the radio, but at least for the detachable control head, it provides a bracket. Now, I can't imagine not wanting to mount the control head because it is a mobile and the control head detaches, much like the other ICOM radios. And I don't understand ICOM's resistance to doing what all other mobile manufacturers do, ham radio gear, and that include the mounting bracket for the remote head, and ICOM didn't do it. But here's another thing that gets me. It's described as a, quote, entry-level D-Star mobile with big rig features, user-friendly, etc. And then it has, of course, a lengthy discussion about the cable-connected terminal mode and access point modes. So what is the advanced level D-Star mobile that ICOM has? I guess maybe that's a 5100. I'm not sure. All right. Any further comments on maybe that's what W6OSO was thinking about helping us on. So, Michael, are you back with us? Go ahead, W6OSO.
Yes, I didn't know I disappeared. Here I was just rattling right along, and what, did I time out or did I just drop out?
You never made it in the first place. I got one key up, no utterances, no nothing. So can you rewind yourself and start over again? We're eagerly awaiting your transmissions. Go ahead.
Boy, the hotspot must be letting me down. I might have to reboot it. All I said was that the difference between the regular 4100 and the deluxe is the mounting bracket for the remote head. I saw somewhere where they were throwing in the mobile mounting bracket. I don't think, everybody gives you brackets. Well, why are these guys doing that? I don't understand. I only know of one person that has a 4100. He lives in San Diego. There's no G3, so all the features won't work. So there's another one. It's just amazing. Back to you, Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were just trying to sort that out because I've forgotten, but I do remember. Yeah, here we go. The 4100 Deluxe is $499.95. This is HRO. No discount. And the 4100A with a $60 discount, the basic is $33.99.95. So because of the discount, you're paying $100 extra for a mobile mounting bracket. And why they didn't apply a discount to the deluxe version is beyond me. Why is a mobile mounting bracket $100? Well, I could spend all night, and I'm sure there will be stations more than willing to dive into this and badmouth ICOM. We're not going to do that much tonight. So I thought I'd just point that out. Michael, thanks for checking in with us. Any final thoughts before you move on? Stations, please key up.
W60SO.
Oh, I thought you were done, Mike. I'm sorry, W60SO. Go ahead.
No, as a final, Ham Nation interviewed Ray Novak last night, and I caught a bit of it. I didn't really pay attention, but ICOM was running a promotion, Dayton promotion, where they're offering Dayton show prices in the form of a rebate, $100 rebate. I have to watch the show as it comes out tomorrow so I could get a full understanding, but I think it involved registering with ICOM in an email format, and they send you the necessary documents for your rebate. HRO may know about it, but like I said, it was just passing that they decided to pass. They're really promoting this 4100, and they wanted to maximize on Dayton. Back to you, Mike.
Well, good luck on that. I bet there are going to be stations asking, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? I mean, and I thought Ray Novak was in charge of the commercial division, and somebody else, well, maybe he's in charge of the whole thing. Maybe they got rid of somebody separately for that. All right. Well, it will be interesting to find out, how ICOM, promotes this radio, and if they've got a new spin on it, or if there's something we're just missing. Look, it is a new radio, as I mentioned, so buying it for that, but it's a lot of money for, well, if you don't need a mobile, if you don't need the mounting bracket for the control head, that is, that you can just, I guess, lay the control head on the desk if it's a base, or maybe use Velcro to mount it if it's a mobile. It was $100. It is a lot, but anyway, I just don't know. That's why I thought I'd ask. And I'm always surprised to find out that there are, great features. Sometimes the publicity, especially from ICOM, because they're, well, the promotional material is self-serving, obviously, but they've been whooping it up on the terminal mode and access point modes, and not so much on other features. I mean, they do mention the Bluetooth and GPS and some of the apps, blah, 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 downplaying the fact that you got to buy expensive cables to put these, the access point and the terminal mode to use, which I just still don't understand that. But, oh yeah, and you end up in basically, well, I'm not going to carry on. I'll let you guys do that. If you like the bad mouth, no, it's not. Never mind. So, it might be interesting to find out if you have purchased a new D-Star Mobile, and even though the ICOM is the only new D-Star Mobile, but if you had to buy one, I mean, what would you get as a mobile? And if you've gone through the process of trying to decide what kind of D-Star Mobile you'd like to have, what did you decide upon? What have you bought, or what would you like to buy? Realizing that I'm going to ask, at least for you to explain some of the considerations in arriving at the decision that you did. So, people who have bought another or new, well, or used, but I mean it's new to you, D-Star Mobile, please key up.
N9KO.
And there's Cal in 9KO. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Well, good evening, Mike and Annette. Last summer, I picked up an ICOM 880H that I'm using as a shack radio, and well, several reasons. I can hit my desired repeater from my home with my ID51 and my 92, but and I typically use my hotspot, my Red DVAP dongle. But the main reasons that I got this for the shack is I don't burn through batteries on my handhelds, obviously. And then secondly, a key factor, and Bob, a long time ago, W6KD mentioned something about his appreciation of the DTMF tones for changing reflectors. And it made it sound like a great idea. I was going to, when I got my 880, I was not going to put any reflectors in it, and I was just going to use D-Star reflectors. Oh, well, this is the only kind there are, right? On D-Star. And, but I broke down and did put some in memory. But I do like the idea, and I rarely, well, let me rephrase it. I generally use DTMF tones to do all my hopping around on the D-Star Empire. So that's why I got my 880H. Also helped, did a $50 rebate back then and hit my magic price of $250. So back to you, Mike, N6 HKH and 9KO.
That's a great, hard-working radio at a great price, and it does make a great base. All right, thanks for letting us know, Cal. AI6KJ. Thanks for being with us. Go ahead. AI6KJ, I got you keyed up, and it's your turn. Go ahead. Well, nothing seen or heard. And again, if you have an inadvertent key up, it's no big to do. Just let us know. It happens. We all do it. It's not embarrassing. And I'll be happy to take you off the list, and we'll carry on. All right, stations who have purchased a D-Star mobile, whether it's for your mobile or your base, we'd like to hear what you purchased and why you did. Please key up.
Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Oscar Kilo KD9HOK. First name is Greg, and I've got an ID 5100.
Hey, Greg, KD9HOK, thanks for joining us. So, ID 5100, well, you know, you can't, well, you know, that does have a big face. So, tell us about it. I mean, what did you consider and didn't buy, and where are you putting it to use? KD9HOK, go ahead.
N6HKH, this is KD9HOK. Good evening, Mike, and hello to everybody listening on the net. Well, originally I just started out as a ham. I've only been a ham for about 4 months, and recently just got my ID 5100. And boy, I'll tell you, it was a chore trying to figure out what I wanted and what radio to buy, and I finally landed on the ICOM ID 5100 because I really liked the features that it had for analog. And the fact that it had D-Star was just an added bonus for me. And lately, I just recently got my call sign registered here at the NS9RC repeater in Chicago. So they sponsored my call sign for D-Star, and the last couple of weeks, I've really been enjoying the D-Star features. I like to, hear all the different stations calling in from all over the country, and also enjoy a lot of the D-Star nets just as much as the FM nets. So, yeah, the features are really usable. The menu is very intuitive. It's a touch screen, and I really like it. So, that being said, this is KD9HOK, back to Mike at Net Control.
All right, Greg, thanks for joining us. Anyone else invest in a new D-Star Mobile? And, it could be that you on purpose did not want to get involved with or pay for the ID 4100 and decided to do something bigger and better. Thought we'd take a quick survey tonight. Stations, please key up.
W6OS.
W6OSO, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I had an 880 in the car as a mobile, and I love that radio. It was a great radio. But for some reason, it stopped working when I got a new car and transferred it over. So I put it aside. I thought it was going to cost too much to fix, so I went and bought a 5100. It's a great radio. I love the 2820, and the features of the 2820 were the building blocks for the 5100. It's very intuitive. It's easy to program. It's easy to set up. It's easy to operate. The touchscreen is a great option. The only thing I don't like about it is the screen display itself. That white on black is horrible. It washes out in the bright light. I have the head of the radio mounted on the top of the dashboard. I threw a towel over it to kind of keep it cooler from the sun beating on it, and it's the only complaint I have is why the mines of Minolta in Japan would have a white background with black lettering that washes out. It's beyond me. But other than that, if they came out with another head or another colored screen, I'd buy it just to replace the screen that's on there. I like the 5100, but no, ICOM needs to do some work on their screen design. Back to you, Mike, for any questions.
Yeah, even the new 4100 is a monotone screen. So the 5100, I don't think is a color screen, is it? I don't have one. I was scrolling through it. It doesn't appear to be a colored screen. In fact, is there an ICOM D-Star capable radio with a color anything? Well, not anything. Screen? Do you know, Mike? W6OSO, go ahead.
Not to my knowledge. In fact, I was talking to either Brother John or Brother Bob one day, and I told them that, boy, I'm just looking at that Kenwood and drooling over that one. That is one nice radio. And if Kenwood ever came out with a mobile, there would be a fire sale on ICOM radios in Moreno Valley. I'll switch over to Kenwood in a moment with what they put into that 74.
Yeah, that does seem to be the hot ticket for mobiles. Although it is more expensive than the ID 51A. Let me just see what they're pricing that one. Let's see. So the 51A plus 2 red is about $460, and the Kenwood THD 74A is $620. No, I'm sorry. There's a Dayton savings of $589.95. So $30 saved. It's still more expensive. And the expense of the D-Star radios is a problem for D-Star. It's when you shop for radios, price many times is a consideration. People have budgets, not everyone. Some people, will have the capability of getting pretty much whatever they want, and that's a great thing to be able to do that, but not all of us can shop that way. So I just was flipping through the HRO sales thing I'm just stuck on HRO. I'm sure there are other vendors, but they're deep sales. So, yeah, I don't think there is one either, Mike, and I was looking for them. And the open spot, hey, that's on sale too. It's down $20. So there you go. All right. Anything further on D-Star mobiles before we move on? Please key up.
VE5XEF.
And we welcome VE5XEF. Go ahead.
Hearing you talking about the mobiles, I've got a Icom 2820 mobile in my vehicle, and the display can be adjusted from a light green to a light yellow, or any mixture of shade in between. It's not really it's not a glaring white, but it is not true color in the fact that it's still black on whatever the background color you've chosen. I hope that helps some who are having questions about it.
Yeah, I mean, that is a common feature of many of the ICOM radios, but that is not a true color screen, where all you're doing is changing the background hue, so to speak. It's still black and white, or grayscale perhaps, and as you change through the background hue, it in theory, red or the reddish color works best at night, and you can go to the other side towards green or amber, and maybe that's better during the day. I don't know. But, that I'm pretty sure is also a feature of the 4100. And if not, yeah, it is. I can see the different colors. It's just that it's probably a little bit better background hue. I think the only ICOM radio that had a color screen, I was trying to think, there is an HF radio. Well, of course, that's not what we're dealing with. All right, appreciate that update. Anyone else? Please key up.
AA6RA.
AA6RA, who is colorblind. Thanks for keying up, Rob. Go ahead.
Oh, well, considering I've owned almost every ICOM mobile that they've made D-Star-wise, from the 800, I even had the 2200, going on all the way up to the 7100. I don't have a 5100 actually, but what I'm finding interesting, HRO price-wise, is right now the 5100 is actually $479, whereas and that's a deluxe version. It comes with all the mounting brackets you could possibly need for that radio, and it's less than the 4100 deluxe, which I realize it's a brand new radio, and it's got a few more bells and whistles than the other one, but I mean, still, it's kind of like a trade-off, because you got the dual receive on the 5100, and but you don't have the G3 capabilities that aren't really readily available at this point in time. So I'm with you with kind of trying to figure out what ICOM is thinking. I've kind of held back from getting another D-Star radio because they keep coming out with Plus and Plus 2, and it just kind of became too much, because once you get that radio, I have an original 51, which did have the broken microphone to begin with. And then they came out with the second version, and now there's a third version. So if I went and bought that second one, I'd be kind of ticked off that a third version came out of it, with better capabilities. I realize, over time that will happen, but it happened in a relatively short period of time, radio-wise, if you think about it. So it kind of makes you scratch your head. Anyway, I just figured I'd throw that out there. How are you, Mike? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Oh, I know. We haven't talked. I'm doing pretty well. I was thinking about some way to shame you to get on the air and get that. What are you using, the DVR PTR board, or what are you using to get into the net? Since I don't know of any excuse for you not being in the net sooner, but I'll accept whatever you've got. Go ahead.
I am on the Thumb DV going into my Mac Mini, and I'm using Buster, but I'm going directly through the K6 PUW repeater up on Oak Mountain. My hotspot is somewhere in my storage room. I've had my radio, computer, everything I program, all of my images, took a dump. So I have to basically get another computer to replace all of that. I have everything saved on a backup, but I haven't picked up another radio computer to do all that stuff. So I haven't gotten in and been able to create a new image, tweak it, and then load it up and see what happens. So for the time being, you know, if I have this, the Thumb DV works pretty well, and now that I've got my Mac stuff sorted out, you know, I can get on here and do it this way. That's, you know, granted, I'm dependent on a repeater, but I don't have like a direct link into the X reflector. So that's what I'm using right now, and I get on the 7100 from time to time as well. That's mostly for HF. Back to you.
Oh, very cool. Well, we're working on, we being me, on Buster. There's been a lot of information coming from both Northwest Digital. There's been information provided in some of the Yahoo groups, and there's been some other stuff that I've been able to gather up that is going to help solve the problem of those that are unable to use Buster on their Macs to connect to reflectors, or usually the problem is they can connect, but either they cannot transmit, that is, be heard on the other side, or they're unable to receive. And I've got to make sure that these patches, so to speak, and some other issues that, mistakes, I guess, that some warnings about what to remove from the P list and what not to remove. And if you've removed it, what you need to do to put it back has been, I think, the culprit in many of these issues. And I've got a Mac that doesn't work well on Buster, and I'm running these various fixes through their paces. And once I'm assured that, and there's been a lot of people offering a lot of things, if that's the fix, we're going to have that as a topic. And in this Buster Doesn't Work business, because I think it's a great program. I'm not as happy with it as I am with WinDV. I mean, that works flawlessly for me and provides me with a lot of information and does a better job on the PC. But being an Apple guy and loving Macs, not having Buster working as it should is a big disappointment. I know some stations have out the gate been able to get them to work, but many have not. And there's no excuse for it. It's a great program. So now, Rob, while I've got you here on the line before you disappear again for another 5 or 6 years, have you given any thought to getting a multi-mode hotspot, saving some money, and connecting to reflectors that way, as opposed to trying to put your DVR, PTR, you know, getting that resurrected AA6RA? Back to you.
Well, first off, I'm glad there is some progress with Buster, and you know that's happening, because I did have that problem, as you know, because you were able to hear me through my Mac on Buster going into X Reflector 002, but I couldn't hear you replying to me. So I'm glad there may be some progress as to a workaround for that. As far as buying more equipment, I've basically stopped buying ham radio equipment, as much as a shock that is to a lot of people. I found that I have everything I need to get where I want to go. As far as getting another type of multi-mode hotspot, I've thought about it. I mean, I still have that DMR radio that I don't use all that often. I'll pop on. I think what happened with the loss of my netbook with all my radio stuff on there, I haven't been able to update it in a while. And, I have a Windows computer, which is specifically for gaming. I don't do anything else but that on there. I don't put any other programs on there just for the sake of I don't want anything to happen to that machine. Then the Mac is kind of limited when it comes to radio programming and things like that. I have the default stuff that ICOM is giving out. I also have a couple of other programs that other people make, and they're all for Windows, unfortunately. So I've kind of been stuck there. And I've kind of looked into some of the things, but not enough. I haven't done enough research to say, yeah, you know what, I really want that. Or the research that I have done is like there have been so many problems with them. It's just best to stay away, in my opinion. So I really haven't thought of switching up the DV repeater. That has worked, up until recently, very, very well for me, and it worked for years and years and years with my original image before I had to actually update it because there have been other repeaters that pop up that aren't in the master list that I gotta input myself, and then push comes to shove, you keep rewriting the same thing, it's going to fail on you eventually. So, once I get something, and I'm not looking for anything expensive, but once I get something that I can dedicate to just radio, I'll probably get that back up on the air. Back to you, Mike.
Well, if you have a DMR radio that works and you don't want to get I think you do not have a D-Star radio. So, wait, I think you said you still have your 7100, so that works, obviously that runs D-Star, but on the D-Star Roundtable forum board, which you can reach at roundtable.tech, roundtable, all one word, .tech, there are a number of articles that you'll find in several of the discussion folders describing some of the things that we've been talking about, which is what could be the future of digital radio, assuming that the systems are open source systems or just open digital systems, is probably should be better described, where with a inexpensive, cheapo DMR radio and an MMDVM hotspot, you can go to any digital mode at any time, including D-Star, and actually spend less than you would buying one radio. But I think probably this two-way QSO, instead of running a net, probably would be best spent maybe sending you a link to that, and we can talk about that some more on the Constellation, or on you're on the K6PUW multimode MMDVM repeater, and I don't know, maybe you haven't heard some of our discussions about that. So, all right, appreciate you checking in, Rob, and I'll pass it back to you for any final words before we move on. A6RA, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I still have the 7100. I still have my original 51. I had a 31. I sold it. But so I still have two D-Star radios. I still have my mobile Kenwood that I use for my hotspot. I mean, I still have a bunch of radios. It's just the majority of stuff I've been doing lately has been HF, and that's sparingly when I have the time. I'll pop on and play around for a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't been following most of the digital stuff, so I will look into that and see what I can come up with, and see if I can free up some spare change there, and maybe invest in something other than what I have if it is cheaper. But yeah, I still have to replace a computer. So other than that, but everything else is good. Been pretty busy with day-to-day stuff and all that good BS. So anyway, it was good to hear you, and I'll be listening in and out. I've got the family. My wife is like, "Oh, you're on the radio," and she ran out. It's been so long. She didn't want to make too much noise behind me there, so that's appreciated. Anyway, Mike, back to you, and good catching up a little bit. N6HKH, 886RA.
Well, thanks for checking in. I haven't heard you in a while, and don't be a stranger to the Constellation. You get your choice of reflectors, and I'm usually listening there, so we'll chat with you maybe over the weekend to get caught up on some stuff. All right, this is the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. At this point, I'm going to break from a topic-driven net to one that we're going to open up now for your questions and topics if you'd like to start one or have one considered perhaps for a future net. And this is unhinged to anything we've talked about thus far, although it could be, but the point being, and you guys get it, it's what's on your mind concerning D-Star and other open digital systems. So, stations, please key up.
K6KD.
K6KD, go ahead.
Okay, Mike. Well, first I want to say hi, Rob. Good hearing you. It's been a while. I did want to mention some things just in response to what you were saying, but it might be, it might be useful for people that haven't been listening to some of the roundtables the past few weeks. But with that DMR radio, you have a lot more options. You're not stuck with clubs, repeaters. Of course, you know that K6PW is a full multi-mode. Some of the hotspot images that Mike mentioned work with all modes. The OpenSpot or MMDVM image just need for that a DV Mega and Raspberry Pi. The other thing that's going to be interesting, we're a few weeks away, but we'll be having a full-featured, I'll call it high-def transcoding, between D-Star and DMR. And the reason I call it high-def, we should think of another name, is there's a bunch of solutions, or a couple solutions out there now that don't sound very good. What is coming, it needs some wrapping on it, but it works as a high-quality D-Star to DMR. So, the question is how we'll want to, if and how we'll want to integrate that with some of the, the existing D-Star infrastructure. So anyway, there's a bunch of interesting possibilities, and just thought I'd mention it. Back to net, K6KD.
All right, John, thanks for that. Well, we did talk about some of the concepts that are coming up, and I think both you and Bob described a XLX reflector-based software and hardware solution to, I think, what was described as a transcoding server, although now you're calling it high def or HQ. That was in a testing mode and still being worked on. It's only, and it's one of its purposes is to overcome the codec problem of being able to talk on D-Star and listen on DMR that is high quality, digital to digital, that has, as of yet, been unavailable, and vice versa, which then with a multi-mode access point device or hotspot, you would then be able to access on a free, non-closed, but open source, open system basis, all of the modes. Now, it's not going to be the same as you might be used to in having, in other words, you're not going to involve a DMR repeater. You don't have to connect to a Yaesu WiresX or Yaesu-based room or reflector. You're going to be using these modes in on devices and systems and reflectors and whatnot that are being set up on an open basis. That is, that this is separate and apart from whatever closed system you might be used to using. But the big to-do is that you can get to it fairly inexpensively. That is, you can build it fairly inexpensively, and a DMR radio is a way to go. Although you can certainly use a D-Star radio, but with this reflector-based and transcoding server-based system that John's talking about, it's going to be digital to digital, and you won't even know that you're going through software and hardware, but it's still to come. What John is drooling over is the fact that he's hoping, I think, to be able to, once the wrapper's off on it, provide it and run it up for testing here locally, and then ultimately broach the subject, which we have not broached, and that is how to bring that into the constellation of X reflectors as well as our multi-protocol XLX reflector, because then you can get into the net with any damn digital mode you like. How about that? All right, stations, questions. You came here because you were chased away from another net because they didn't have any answers, and you wanted to come here to get your question answered and take it back. That's fine. Got a topic you'd like us to broach, something that we've ignored that is annoying you, or just a plain old ordinary technical question that has got you stumped and you'd like to hear as many reasonable answers that you can get. This is the time we do such things. Stations, please key up.
K6KB.
Well, I'll call on you, John, as long as you're not going to brag too much more. I mean, we got to keep something under wraps. K6, of course, I'm teasing. K6KD, go ahead.
Okay, Mike, I just wanted to clarify that some of the existing D-Star to DMR and DMR to D-Star are all digital, but for a number of reasons, they're just not very good. You know, people can hear, you can make out what someone is saying, but you know, I think if you talk to people who have used those systems, they're not going to want to have extensive conversations on them. That's the kind of thing that you can say, oh, we were able to talk on D-Star and listen to DMR, or vice versa, but you're not going to want to use it very much because most of them sound pretty lousy. What's coming out sounds excellent. In fact, you would not know, you wouldn't know that it's being on that you're listening across a different mode, you know, between D-Star and DMR. It sounds good. You could use a DMR radio and still you'll see the D-Star, you know, header information. It's all first rate, but it's a few weeks away. So anyway, just wanted to clarify that one thing. Back to you, Mike.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, we have seldom talked about other digital to digital ways because they were unsatisfactory, as you just mentioned. And we've had stations that have checked into the roundtable. It's been a while since we've heard from them, but they were apparently on a Fusion radio talking to some Fusion device that allowed them to connect to some Fusion something or other that then was connected to a D-Star whatever, and there was just it was just a lot of software, and it was choppy, and the audio was not very good. There have been other ways of trying to go about it that were less than digital to digital, but you know, we don't even really consider those. Now, one of the reasons for not even from where I sit, thinking about bringing in other modes is because it was bad. And can you imagine having a net where, you know, the audio from other modes is either blastingly loud, rough, broken, constant dropouts, and just unacceptable. I mean, you just can't run a net that way and put up with it. Nobody's going to, you know, listen to that very long. I mean, if you want to play that, play with those things and listen to them, there are plenty of check-in nets where you can perhaps have stations do it. But I've noticed that the number of stations that were running a software-to-software type of digital patch, there's a better word to describe it, we haven't heard from them in a while, and it could very well be that advancements in another arena, mostly in Europe, where they're trying to overcome and make a true digital conversion between D-Star and DMR. We call it transcoding. Was being worked on, and it's only when I truly believed that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That is, there are going to be some differences, but as far as the audio quality, you wouldn't know. And you're not going to be required to, get out the baling wire and gum and, have 20 or 30 things connected. It's just on a reflector. And how that reflector does it is of interest to us, and we've discussed it somewhat. But it's kind of beside the point because you're going, and you can come in on any digital mode and come out on D-Star and be part of this roundtable. But we've ignored that. Let me break. Because it was just bad, unsatisfactory for the net. And that's not the purpose of this net. We're not here to test out and provide, a testing ground to see how things work. And while I understand stations keep up with new gear all the time, but this is a net. This is not a place where this is not a sandbox net. And I've just been really leery about it. But as things have progressed, a lot of my concerns have been allayed, and we'll see where this goes. For those that are D-Star and D-Star only aficionados, please don't be alarmed. We are not just overnight deciding that we're going to be a multi-mode, just talk about all modes net. What we are going to do in talking about D-Star and other digital modes generally is allow other digital modes to participate in the roundtable without being disruptive. That, I think, would be of interest, and I hope you believe so too. If you think that that's a tragic mistake on the part of me and the roundtable crew, so that I like to call them, and part of what the overarching entity is Kings of Digital, you can send me an email, n6hkh@me.com, and lodge your protest. But otherwise, if it looks like it's going to work, okay, but it's not there yet. But I appreciate K6KD dangling the carrot. It's pretty good at that. All right, stations, please key up.
AA7US 8.
AA7US. Go ahead.
Well, hey, Mike, I have a question not related to the different mode converting you just discussed, if that's all right, if I can ask it.
Of course, it's open season. I mean open session. Go ahead.
All right, open season, excellent. All right, AA7US on this end, and I monitor 02 Alpha usually throughout the day whenever I can, and occasionally I've been hearing people talk over either 02 Alpha or maybe one of the other connected reflectors, and I only hear one side of the conversation. And so I'm wondering what circumstances would lead that to happen, where I would hear somebody just having a conversation. They're clearly talking to somebody, but I'm only hearing one side of it. Doesn't happen very often, but I've heard it in the last couple of weeks, 1 or 2 or 3 times maybe. So back to you.
W.
As have I, and I think there was a recent discussion with another station that was pointing that out and trying to get the station who's, well, let's just, you guys heard it. Let's have W6KD explain it because he keyed up. W6KD, go ahead.
Okay, well, it's not completely definitive, but what usually happens when you hear that is it indicates that the party you can't hear is talking through a repeater and does not have his RPT1 and RPT2 fields set properly in his radio programming. So, you know, if in particular the RPT2 field, which is what enables you to go through the internet gateway. So if you're on a local repeater, and it doesn't matter what kind of reflector you're connected to, it works the same for all of them in this regard. If your radio is properly programmed, let's say you're using the W6 CJ repeater, Bravo module, UHF. So you have W6CJ Bravo in your RPT1, and you have W6CJ G Golf for the gateway, for the internet gateway. Then and that repeater is in turn connected to one of the reflectors. Then everybody connected to the reflector is going to hear him. But if he's talking on that repeater to another station who has W6CJ Bravo in his RPT1 but doesn't have the gateway in his RPT2, the local traffic on that repeater, everybody that's talking RF through the repeater will still hear him, but because he doesn't have the RPT2 program properly, it will not go out from the repeater to the gateway. So his side of the conversation never makes it out of the repeater. And that's usually what's happening when you see that. And the best thing to do when you hear that is try to determine where there might be a break in the action, although it's not, you can't necessarily guarantee you're doing that because you can't hear the other guy. But if it sounds like maybe they're nearing the end of the QSO, or there's a break in the action, or if they're doing a round table, it's between a couple of other guys, let the guy he's talking to know so that he can tell him that he's got a problem, because he can't hear you either because he doesn't have that gateway setting. So, but that's usually what it is. If there's another cause for the problem, on other types of reflectors you can have other issues, but on the X reflectors, that's usually what it is. W6KD back to the group.
All right, Bob, thank you. And we could use a station that could help us explain if the not heard station is using a D-Star radio and is operating in DR mode, that there is a setting problem that would cause this as well. And I'd like a station to describe the correct setting to make sure that when you're on a repeater, your signal passes through to the gateway and out to the reflector, that usually the other station that you can hear is connected to a reflector, and then listening to a station on a repeater, although it could be on a repeater as well. Any help in DR mode stations, please, Kia?
W6K.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, one correction to what I just said. Actually, the guy that doesn't have his RPT2 set properly will hear traffic coming in from the gateway, because the repeater's gonna transmit it. So yeah, I got that part wrong. Anyway, but you will not be able to hear him because without the RPT2 set properly, his traffic goes to the local repeater and no further. So anyway, I just wanted to correct that. For the record, W6KD.
Well, I'm glad you did, because you were describing what is known as local mode in DV parlance, where you just drop or take out the RPT2 altogether, and then you and another station on a repeater, even if it's linked to a reflector, would not pass through that reflector and wouldn't bother anybody on a reflector. You don't have to go through the trouble of unlinking the repeater that you're using from the reflector, and if traffic comes in from the reflector, they may double with you, but you could certainly return the correct setting, which would be the gateway with a repeater call. That is G in the 8th character position, in RPT2. Usually it's a known programming thing, as opposed to what Bob just described, where someone is improperly programmed in RPT2 and can hear, and as it would be the same with local too, as long as the repeater is connected through the gateway to a reflector. Now, there's another side to this, and that is the DR mode, which frankly is probably where most people get caught up. And in listening to the QSO that AA7US described, which I'd heard a few times on the reflector, somebody finally came in and said, "Hey, this guy you're talking to, we've heard you several times, it's got a problem. We don't hear it." And as it turned out, he was in DR mode and did not have it set for CQ gateway, and he just had it set for CQ reflector. So apparently in DR mode, there's a difference, and the difference is that if you want to go out through the gateway, it's got to be CQ gateway. Otherwise, just CQ local or CQ reflector. Although I don't, I heard this. I don't think it's CQ reflector because that doesn't make any sense. You would be out on the reflector, but maybe it's just CQ or CQ local. But anyway, it's got to be CQ gateway. That's the same as of correctly setting RPT2. Does anyone else have a different view of the fix or have another explanation for why you would hear only one side of the conversation on the Constellation or on any other linked reflector, or that is not linked reflector? Well, it could be. I mean, that's reflectors, but on any system that's linked where there's a repeater connected at some point. Stations, please key up.
ZL2RO.
ZL2RO. Welcome, and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. ZL2RO here, and good afternoon to everybody else. Now, I just was just listening. I'm not sure actually who connected my hotspot to this reflector because it wasn't me, so that's a conundrum that I'll figure out soon. But I've come across this conundrum when someone's RF into the repeater, and the repeater's been linked to another reflector, and you're listening to that reflector, and you can only hear one side of a conversation. And so I've heard this before, and this happens. I've heard this quite a lot of times actually, and I understand it's because they definitely got their radio by accident on local, but that's just from what I understand. Over.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be on local in the DV mode because local would describe dropping RPT2 to not go out through the reflector to be purposely on local mode. But in DR mode, I can't right now check the radios, but and I so seldom use DR mode, but still, I think it's there's CQ gateway, which would correct the problem, and then there's CQ something else. Is it CQ local? Is that it, Phil? Is it ZL2RO? Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe so. I think in most of the radios, the CQ local comes up with capital CQ, CQ, CQ. And then if you go to the use reflector, that's going through the gateway, I believe. I'd have to pull over and just demonstrate that myself, but I'm pretty certain that's what it is. So the capital, well, I noticed that in my radios. Should be the same with everybody else's that are ICOM. Yeah, it's capital CQ, CQ, CQ that is local from what I understand. Over.
ZL2.
Yeah, I just I wish I could pop a radio on because we're kind of slinging away, but I do understand because the station that then on the Constellation, and he was in DR mode, went to CQ gateway as I heard the description. All of a sudden there he was, and everybody could hear him, and we were all able to sink back in our chairs and all breathe a sigh of relief. Let's see what's ZL2TWS has to add. Go ahead.
Oh, good evening, Mike. Good evening, everyone. And hello, Phil. I'm the one that connected your hotspot, by the way. Didn't want anyone to miss out on the net. Over.
Oh, okay, so you were just keying up to connect. Was that it, or were you going to add in on the conversation, or did you want to kick Phil around for some reason? ZL2TWS, go ahead.
He was a little bit anxious here, so I just thought I'd put him out of his misery. Mike, I thought that some of this hearing one side of the conversation was sometimes on the hotspots that are connected to reflectors. I believe some of them are on IRCDDB, and it's not allowed to pass. We don't do it unless people break the rules. And it was sort of, I don't know if the rule isn't concrete or it's just something that we all like to do because it's good etiquette. Connect IRCDDB and REF G2, G3, D+ reflectors. But sometimes people have a hotspot that's only on IRCDDB, and they'll have it cross-connected somehow, and what will happen is that only one side of the conversation comes through. So that's something which I believe has happened around here, around in New Zealand a little bit. But I go with the comment that people not using RPT1 and RPT2 because some of the IRCDDB gateway hotspots, if you're using a DVRPTR or something like that, it's possible not to use RPT1 or RPT2 at all, and it will still pass you through that local hotspot. So I think some of this one-sided stuff is also got to do with these hotspots that are connected and running in IRC and not D+, Mike. So that's just my little bit I wanted to add in there, and I don't know if that will bring on any other conversations, but Phil ZL2RO, I connected your hotspot to REF002. I didn't want people to miss out on the net. For some reason, Mike, down here it's Friday afternoon. Some people just don't remember to have a listen in. Okay, so that's my lot, and I'm back to net control. ZL2TWS in windy Wellington.
Well, thanks for helping us, because that is another reason. Although, while, there's no laid down rule, but the fine folks at the U.S. Trust and AA4RC do not like a cross-connect between REF reflectors, the G2, with IRCDDB, that is the XRF. And there are some hotspots where if you, although I think through firmware this has been largely resolved, except for the DV4 Mini, it still can't happen there. But there are devices that previously, if you did not unlink from the extra or IRCDDB, and then you then immediately go to link into a REF reflector, you were actually dragging the connection where the two were connected. And while sometimes you could not hear both sides, usually you could. And the quality was pretty good, and most people didn't know that there were two different reflectors, one on REF and one XRF, that were connected, and you guys were talking to each other. Now, cross-connecting, or that is, I don't know if that's the right word, but connecting XRF to XRF is no big to do. That's part of what can happen, but that is a point that is well taken, and we haven't seen or heard much of that, but it does happen from time to time. So, and I just wanted to jump back to ZL2RO. Phil, just in passing, are you using a ID4100A ZL2RO? Go ahead.
Yeah, QSL, over.
Well, about an hour ago, we were asking for stations who have the new ICOM 4100A mobile to give us a review since there are so few out. They were just recently released here, at least in North America, and I couldn't get anyone to admit that they actually bought one. And so, if you don't mind, could you take a few moments and give us your thoughts about the radio, good and bad, and in particular, if there was a purchasing decision involved, that is, you were contemplating other radios. It didn't have to be that way. You could just be one of those guys that has to have the newest radio. But if there was, what else did you consider in ultimately buying that new radio? ZO2RO, go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Well, the price here in New Zealand was very, very favourable, I must admit. I was the first to get one in this country. Well, that's what I was told by Icom New Zealand. And it was a very, very good price. Just under $600 New Zealand. So, yeah, I can't complain at that. But I like it. I think it's great. The one thing one negative. Well, there's a couple of negatives about it so far. It hasn't got dual watch like the 5100, but it's a sleeker, smaller thing in the car. Where the 5100 screen on the dashboard was too much of a candy for people to see, if you know what I mean. It was always having to take it down and put it in the glove box. And I noticed driving at night, it illuminated quite a lot, quite bright in the dashboard, and sort of did restrict the vision a little bit, impair vision, I should say. I'm still coming to terms with this radio. The mountain bracket for it hasn't even got into the country yet. The radio's before the accessories. The cool thing about it is the 5100 vehicle mounting bracket for the unit fits the 41 Alpha just like a glove. So that was a plus straight away. I didn't have to buy another mount for it. The 51's in my shack now, 5100's in my shack, but I've just noticed a few things on it. When you transmit, the fan always comes on and goes to keep it cool. And the information when you guys key up doesn't come across the screen at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that's just a setting that I've changed because I've done a few things on it. And we do have a G3 gateway here in New Zealand, from what I understand. It's when I go to conference, I'm going to be finding out how to connect to it and try it out for the first time. But I like it as a mobile rig. Over.
Well, it's an interesting way to get around the mounting bracket, to take it from the 5100 and then move that in. Well, very cool. You've got great audio. Now, are you, TWS already said you're going through a repeater. I think that's so. So the mic that comes with it, is it different from the 5100? And what do you think about it? Back to you.
The mic looks exactly the same, except it's a 2078. A 207S or an 8. It's either an S or an 8. A fancy S or just an 8 microphone. I think it's pretty cool. It's got a lot of functionality to it. I just have to push. I've got function 2 to go to DR mode, to the D-Star mode, or go back to analog. It's got a very, very, very fast scan mode in it. I'm going through my hotspot, which is like a repeater, high-powered hotspot, GMSK DV Mega Odroid XU4 hotspot in a FT 9700 analog radio. I'm going to mount it on the little suction cup thing with the head that comes off, and it comes with the extension cable and all that. And my existing programming leads for my other radios works perfect on this. And so far, so good, over.
Well, good deal. Well, the pricing makes, if the price is right, and congratulations on being the first one in New Zealand. That's good enough for me, and it sounds reasonable. I haven't heard anyone else from your country key up and claim that particular status, but it's going to be fun to hear how that works out. I mean, it's not, you know, if there was less, if it was a lower, much lower price than it is here, it would be, you know, worthy of consideration. I agree. The 5100 has a large screen and it takes up a lot of space. I mean, there are many cars that you really have a tough time finding a place to fit it if you're going to dash mount it in some manner without putting it up on the dash itself above the instrument panel or yet attaching it from the ceiling or to the window, although putting it on the window mount would be a problem in many of the states that prohibit that, at least things that block the driver's view. So very cool. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you're with us tonight. So let me go back, though, and we're going to break now and go back to AA7US. He started a question and kind of slid away from it and then back to, and then on to the 4100, although I couldn't let that go by. But John, AA7US, so does that sound to you like that was a resolve? And since you last heard those stations, have you heard them since on the Constellation AA7US? Go ahead.
N1DOT.
All right, there may have been a double. N1DOT recognized AA7US. Hopefully you're not transmitting. AA7US, go ahead. Well, no response. He may have bailed and may have gotten the answer he needed, but he could be transmitting, although I don't show any further doubles, but we'll give him a chance to key back up, and he'll find out soon that he wasn't heard if he continues to listen after transmitting. In the meantime, let's say hello to N1DOT. Go ahead. Well, this is not working out at all. N1DOT, Ken, I got you keyed up. Are you just linking on Lincoln, or do you have something for the roundtable? N1DOT, go ahead.
Not at this time, because I don't know what the topic of discussion was. I was just linking in kind of late, but I'm linking in anyway.
Fair enough. Thanks for joining us. Let's try AA7US. Are you still with us? Go ahead. Well, people come and go. So we're in the open segment, open questions, open topics for the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. Stations, please key up. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard. A station early on just put an open spot to use, and it found that it worked well. I mean, it sounded good, but found that the profiles for it allowed him to segregate and program the capability of linking to and using different kinds of reflectors, that is, between the extra, D plus, and other reflector protocols. And plus, given that the open spot is on sale and seems to be a favored way of being able to have a multi-mode device and be in position to take advantage of some of the new technology that's coming up to allow true transcoding, that perhaps a discussion about the open spot profiles may be in order. We have, sometimes a fair number of stations that are joining us here on the roundtable using an open spot. So I'll entertain a station who would like to, just for all of us, briefly describe the purpose of the profile, and more specifically, and we'll take this from as many stations as would like to, participate in this. how they can, well, when you switching profiles, how can they make the open spot do more and overcome some of the, and I guess I'm struggling for a word. Its inability to do certain things, such as to link and unlink in certain circumstances, to where once you're in one reflector in protocol, you're not able to just instantly switch to another. And apparently, and I don't have an open spot, but the profiles fix that. So I thought this would be a good time to kick that around. So we're looking for just a brief overview of the profile, of the purpose or definition of the profile, and then more specifically, how do you put them to work? Stations, please, Kip.
Yeah, N1 DOT.
N W6KD.
I have N1 DOT and W6KD. First to N1 DOT. Go ahead.
You power up an open spot, it defaults to profile 0, but you get up to a total of six profiles, 0 through 5. Okay, that could be stored under different names, but each profile can be dedicated to a specific mode, or a profile basically stores a complete configuration like that includes login passwords, that includes. The best way to use the profiles, though, is to disable the login password. That way it just switches profiles and turns up and does what it needs to do. And you don't have, it's best to use it without the default password instead of the no password at all. But basically what the profiles do is they allow you to have totally separate configurations. One could, let's say, be for the null connector, which means connect to nothing. Another one could be for D-Star. Another one could be for C4FM. Another one could be DMR. And whatever you set up within that profile, when you assume that profile, like from DMR, you'd use the 9001 and switch profiles. From C4FM, it's star 9001 and then a profile number from 0 through 5. On D-Star, you have to use a certain letter in the 8th position. I forget what it is offhand, but I'd have to consult the manual. But basically, all a profile does is it stores a completely separate configuration. You can have a configuration for D-Star, one for DMR, one for C4FM, going to a particular, network like the YSF reflector or the FCS reflectors. You could have another profile, let's say, for 2 profiles for DMR, one for Brandmeister, one for DMR Plus. And you can send commands from the radio to flip profiles, but when you switch from one mode to another, it's going to assume that if you go from DMR to D-Star, you then have to have your D-Star radio ready and on the same frequency as what's defined in the profile, because from that point on, your D-Star radio will be used to command that whatever you're doing in that profile. See, the whole idea behind the open spot is on D-Star is it was supposed to link and remain linked. You can switch from one reflector to another, but they don't give you the ability to unlink unless you invoke the null connector, which is the connect to nothing connector, basically.
All right, Ken, appreciate that. And thanks for starting us off on that discussion. W6KD. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually it's 5 profiles, 0 through 4, I think, Ken. But you can use a profile, and Ken pretty much covered the map there. You can use it to select different reflectors, but that's a very cumbersome way of doing it. Of course, if you're only using it in D-Star mode, then I guess why not? But normally, I think you would use separate profiles for different modes, and then once you're in a mode, you switch. For example, once you're in, and in the open spot. Curiously, it separates the XRF and REF reflectors from the DCS and XLX reflectors. If you're using an REF or an XRF reflector, those use one type of connector, and then the XLXs and the DCSs use another, which is odd. Interestingly, you can connect to most of the XLX reflectors anyway with as an X reflector, just by specifying its persona as an X reflector. So, for example, with XLX 212, which is connected to the constellation here, you can connect to XRF 212 on port 20001, which is B+, and that'll work just fine. Yeah, it's kind of a non-standard, kind of sort of a brute force way of doing things to use up one of your profiles to connect to one reflector or another. Better to use your profiles for different modes, and then use the regular standard linking commands. And one caveat on the open spot, we probably have mentioned it before, but DTMF tones to switch between reflectors don't work with the open spot. So you have to have it programmed in your radio to make it happen. So either programmed in your radio with a link command, or I guess you could use the profiles and set it up via the web interface and swap between the profiles. But yeah, that just strikes me as a really sort of a cumbersome brute force way of doing things. Back to that W6 Kitty.
N1.
Well, appreciate that. I have K6KD and N1DOT. K6KD is up next. Go ahead.
Okay, Michael, I would just say that for D-Star, the open spot's a great unit. I've got a couple of them, and I'm quite happy with them. But for D-Star, there are some the disadvantages that were mentioned. It's just kind of cumbersome. What the open spot does very well is DMR radio to a DMR reflector, a DMR radio to an open source Fusion YSF reflector. It does that very well. In other words, cross mode between DMR and Fusion, or using a Fusion radio to a Fusion open source YSF reflector. It does all those things very well. But for D-Star, I think the other solutions are better. Back to that.
All right, can you remind us the disadvantages of using an open spot or purchasing it exclusively for D-Star, if that was your intent? K6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, as Bob mentioned, it doesn't do the DTMF, so everything's got to be programmed in so even if you do have DTMF capability, you've got to, you can't use it. You don't have the kind of commands that you do for D-Star Commander, although the shutdown is not a big deal, because on the open spot you can just pull the power and you're not worried about corrupting an SD card. But you don't have the other features, let's say, that D-Star Commander has. But the other thing, that the radio is programmed different. Well, I could be wrong about this. I know initially it came out, the radios were programmed differently in the year call field, but I think, and that's the way it's documented with a different type of programming. But I think someone had tested and found it to be the same. That it would work, with the standard programming. So I'm not positive about that. But in general, it just doesn't have the features and the flexibility that you would get using one of the D-Star specific images. Back to you, Mike.
Got it. N1DOT, go ahead.
The other thing I find with the two different D-Star connectors, the reason why they segregate DCS and XLX is when you use that connector, it's using the DCS protocol on the 30,000 and 51 port. Whereas if you're using the REF XRF connector, it's using the D plus protocol on port 20,001 primarily. And that covers basically the two D-Star connectors that are built into the software. Yes, the Eurocall field programming is different. It's not in the form of XRF 002, module and then Alpha Link. It's got a different format. I don't use it that much for D-Star, so I don't remember exactly what the command is for the Eurocall field. There is no unlink command per se because they want you to be connected to the reflector. So they give you the ability to switch reflectors, but not to disconnect from the reflector. If you want to do that, you have to go invoke the null connector, which means disconnect from everybody. Okay, which means if you're on DMR, it means disconnect from the VM server or the DMR Plus server. If you're on a Fusion reflector, it means disconnect from the Fusion reflector or the FCS reflector, if you will. Well, the same rule would apply. It means that's your disconnect. Switching to the null connector, switching through the null connector, is the only way to disconnect completely and take the unit offline. There is in the D-Star connectors, there is no unlink. The unlink is the null connector, basically.
W6KD.
W6KD recognized. So I missed, though, Ken, you said that the segregation of DCS and XLX because it uses the DCS protocol, but I missed the protocol that OpenSpot uses as default for REF and XRF. M1DOT, go ahead.
That connector uses D plus port 20,001.
Got it, thanks. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, and one notable point about that is that because it uses D plus, port forwarding is not a problem. So it's doing essentially the same thing that like D-Star Commander does by forcing connections to the X reflectors to use D plus, so that explicit port forwarding of 30,001 isn't needed. There is one other way of disconnecting in addition to using the null connector, and that's to add a bogus server to the connectors list and attempt a connection there, because it will unlink from whatever you're linked to, and then of course it won't be able to connect to the illicit connector that you define. So if you were to create a some generic server, XRF 999, or just pick one, and then define an IP address that's obviously not a reflector, you could then send a link command to that, which would cause it to unlink from where you're at, but it wouldn't link to anything because that's not a valid connector. That's one way of sort of tricking it into doing that. But yeah. Let's see, what else? There was something else, and I'm forgetting what it was now. Well, if I remember, I'll bring it up. Anyway, W6KD, back on that.
Alrighty, we'll stand by for that. Alright, to stations with comments on OpenSpot, especially concerning the use of profiles, or if you have a question because you have an OpenSpot, or you're thinking about buying one, and the profile issue or capability is of a concern or confusing, or, like me, makes no sense, well, until tonight, of course, please key up now.
AA0RX.
AA0RX, go ahead.
AA0RX, returning.
Yeah, the open spot is something I haven't bought yet, so I cannot comment at all about it. But before I proceed with that new thing there, I've been immensely enjoying the D-Star Commander W6KD image with the Pi Zero W. It's old school, and most people here know about this, but on the way out from Colorado all the way out to Dayton here and everywhere in between, it's been flawless for D-Star. Of course, it doesn't do DMR, it doesn't do P25 and Fusion, but I haven't really that's not been a concern of mine at all. But the Pi Zero W with a little DVAP, a little bit of Robin Cutshaw, and a little bit of open source stuff works really, really well, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and that may be a step back from where we're going in terms of things, but it cannot be unrecognized that W6KD and K6KD and a lot of others have put a lot of infrastructure and a lot of support into the D-Star Commander image and or the G4KLX image, especially him too. And it cannot be unrecognized that those people have done volumes in terms of getting this whole thing working for all of us. So just want to make a comment and an observation that the Pi Zero W with a DVAP is the smallest and the coolest thing that I've ever experienced in terms of digital voice. Of course, I can't talk to somebody on P25 yet or System Fusion, but I don't care. AA0RX.
Never leave home without one is what we say. We've talked about traveling with D-Star on several occasions, well, at least once a year about this time, at least in or about the Memorial period, which appears to be Thursday through Monday, but certainly Memorial weekend. The Raspberry Pi DVAP, with using the D-Star Commander image, along with however you want to power it, usually off your vehicle with a 12-volt to 5-volt converter of some sort, or a battery pack. You can't beat that. And let's be clear, we're never going to advocate, even if we were to let other digital modes participate in the roundtable, that you should get rid of your gear and go another way. That is not at all the intent. And not everything is everybody's cup of tea. If you'll notice, and I'm glad that AA0RX brought this up, while we try to cover as many interests as we can, I don't think we've ever suggested that there's got to be only one way to go, or that you should only operate on this one particular mode or device, or that the other digital modes should be ignored. Now, I will admit that going back, some time, there was nothing worthy of my attention other than D-Star. And even if all the things that have been talked about here of recent come to pass, and it turns out that it just doesn't matter anymore what radio you have, it's the hotspot that gets you everywhere. We're not going to say, well, this is no longer a D-Star net, it's something else. And you can, even if you're a DMR kind of guy, there's a lot to be said for D-Star and understanding it, because at some point, the DMR people are going to be able to talk to D-Star and do so without any degradation in audio or usability, and without having to issue 10,000 commands or connect through about 5 or 6 different talk groups and reflectors. And same thing for D-Star wanting to go the other way. So, for those that like the way it is with D-Star and the hotspots, you're not going to hear us tell you you can't do it that way anymore, you're behind the times, and you won't hear that from me. We'll talk about what's new, but we're not going to ignore or badmouth or stop talking about what isn't quite so new. I hope I made that clear.
N1DO.
N1DOT, go ahead.
That's the thing that still intrigues me, Mike. And I'm using I'm using IRC-DB gateway and G-Star repeater, but I'm using it with a DR1X. So I'm using it with the compass image with UDRC on the repeater here. They got a small homebrew repeater that I run at the house. That's 20 watts UHF. But the only problem is with the particular vehicle that I drive, I've got to watch how I power things. Because the minute I hit the engine stop button and turn it off, my vehicle shuts everything off, including the cigarette lighter. So I've got to watch out for that if I'm running a hotspot. That's why I've got to, if I'm going to do some sort of a Raspberry Pi setup or a G-Spot, which is based around the core of a Raspberry Pi, running MMDVM host with a DV Mega. It's along the similar lines of the D-Star Commander, the way it works. Just a little bit differently because it uses MMDVM host. I got to be very careful how I power things down, because I will most certainly end up with a corrupted SD card if I don't have some way of shutting that computer down before I hit that engine stop button and get out of the vehicle. Because my cigarette lighter in my vehicle, they shut everything in. Unfortunately, with Subaru and their infinite wisdom, decided to power everything down when you turn the vehicle off, including the car radio, you name it, it all goes off.
Well, that is a point well taken, and we've talked about proper shutdown procedures. In fact, there was and I was trying to find it, and I just can't remember where I parked it, but in one of the Yahoo groups there was a question that actually got answers that were all over the map, and I don't know that the station got a direct answer, but it was, hey, I need to be able to shut my D-Star access point down, and I'm really concerned about being able to do so. And how can I do it using an app on an Android tablet? That's what he wanted to do. And there was a number of programs and different ways of going about it. But the bottom line, though, as Ken said, is that you can, no matter how you go about it, you got to power it down with D-Star Commander and other similar operating systems. You just either issue unlink and then shut down, or you just issue shutdown. And there were a number of interesting methods to do that by way of an Android device app, and I can't find the damn thing because I was going to talk about that perhaps next Thursday, but I wanted to get it. I wanted to catch every answer and then post it so y'all could read it or at least have a link to it. But that is still a big concern. What was funny is that some of the answers in this Yahoo group was, well, just have 4 or 5 extra operating system image cards, and when you just shut it down, like with Ken's vehicle, and you scramble the micro SD or SD card, just throw it away and throw a new one in because you have backups. And of course that elicited a series of violent responses about, no, you don't want to use, that's stupid, go do this. And I'm sure the station just kind of, bent over and well, I don't want to say it that way, but, said, oh my God, where did I start here? But it was a well-taken question. And it was an interesting one. How to do it by software, by a tablet, as opposed to issuing a command through, your radio programming to an operating system that would receive and respond to that command correctly. Thanks for that, Ken. Stations, please key up.
W6KB.
I have AA0RX and W6KD. AA0RX first. Go ahead.
Thank you, AA0RX returning. Yeah, I'm not making any light of P25 Fusion or DMR at all when I say my comments about that. They're all viable, but
with all the, like I said, the infrastructure and stuff that I use, with the DTMF tones, shutting down the Pi, changing frequencies. There's a huge amount of information that you read on the W6KD forum. That it's a huge amount of infrastructure and support, and it just should not be overlooked. And I guess I'm saying the same thing over and over again, I guess. But anyway, I do have an MMDVM, and I do play around with the DMR thing, and that's fun. But you know, what I'm coming to Dayton with is D-Star, and I'll be at the Ham Nation booth tomorrow, showing off the what I know. But anyway, you know, some of the stuff you guys are talking about, the connections and everything are above my pay grade so far, but I'm still learning. But anyway, can't say enough good things about the current infrastructure. And everybody I've shown, there's like a huge wildfire right now going on with D-Star. And 74 alphas are selling like crazy, and helping a lot of new hands into D-Star. So other than that, Kings of Digital, enjoy the evening. 7-3. We'll tell you more about the event tomorrow and the next day. AA0RX.
N1 DOT recognized. Yeah, so Gary, I understood what you were saying, and I don't, and I wasn't going after or countering or trying to support in a unusual manner what you had to say. You just, and what you said rang a bell in my head that, and these conversations have come up primarily on the Constellation, not during the net. But I just, because what you said is so true, I just wanted to let everybody know what my thoughts are and where this roundtable stands in regards to those. And I didn't understand your transmission to mean that you were bad mouthing other modes. I know exactly where you're at, because there's a whole lot of people that are feel the same way you do, and you're not going to shun the other digital modes, but you're not going to go crazy just to be able to put them to use. And keep in mind that, you know, we're looking at it from a little bit different view. And so anyway, enough said on that, but I appreciate you keying up, and I am looking forward to hearing from you from Dayton, man. I appreciate you, hanging in there a bit to be part of the roundtable. W6, no, wait. Let me see where we're at here. No, I already got W6. It's N1 DOT is next. Go ahead, Ken. I was wrong. W6KD is next, then N1 DOT. So W6KD, go ahead.
I thought maybe I was talking in my sleep or something. Anyway, Ken was talking about the challenge of operating mobile with vehicle shutdown. That was an issue when I built the first of my portable hotspots with the Raspberry Pi and a DVAP. Just scramming the power on the Raspberry Pi is asking for trouble, because if that Raspberry Pi is in the middle of a write cycle to the SD card, it'll scramble it. And so the solution, there are two products made by West Mountain Radio that I like. One's called an ISO Power. The other one's a Super Power Gate. And the ISO Power allows you to hook a aux battery up in your vehicle, and when the vehicle's running and there's a volt, when you've got the 13.8 coming out of the alternator, it'll charge. Whatever's plugged in the downstream part of the device will use the vehicle's power system, and it'll charge the battery. And then when you shut the vehicle down, it isolates that auxiliary battery from the vehicle's battery and powers your device from it. And then the super power gate is essentially the same thing, except it adds a 3-stage charger to the mix as well. So you have your own integrated charger built right in to the device. They're not cheap, but what it allows you to do is is power your hotspot independently of the vehicle, but use the vehicle's power still to charge the battery, and that proved to be a pretty good solution. So as long as I didn't leave the hotspot out in the vehicle for more than about 36 hours, it would continue to run all the time off the battery, which was a 10 amp hour burglar alarm battery, just a sealed AGM lead acid type battery. Let me reset. At any rate, with the open spot, you can power that down just by depowering it, no problem. You know, whatever it's in the middle of, it's not an issue because it's all firmware. It's all flashed into firmware. So as soon as you power it back up, it boots up again, and it's great. The challenge with the open spot, however, is that it has the only internet connection that it'll use is an Ethernet connection. So you have to use, in conjunction with the open spot, a Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter. And the rub is, the problem that you run into when you try to just throw the power on to a portable hotspot that's got both your open spot and that Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter in it, is that your open spot's looking for that Ethernet connection immediately as soon as it boots up, and it boots up in about 20 seconds. The Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter, most of them take at least that long to power up and then talk to your cellular device and do the DHCP handshaking, get an IP address, and then get fired up. So what ends up happening is your open spot doesn't get a good DHCP resolution when it starts up, and so it's not talking to the internet, and it causes it to not work. And so what you need to do if you want a mobile device with an open spot that you want to be able to, to brute force power on and off, is you have to somehow enable a delay between the power up of your Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter and the power up of the open spot. And I haven't solved that problem for myself yet either, but that's what's required. What would be slick would be to have the guys, have the Shark RF guys implement a power on delay right in the firmware, and that way it could just sit there and cool its heels for 20 or 30 seconds or whatever, and give the internet device time to boot up and get stable before it actually tries to talk and do its own thing. But anyway, that's the challenge. You have to have a stable Ethernet internet connection when you fire up that open spot, or it won't work very well. Back to the net, W6KD.
K6K.
Great description and some great ideas. K6KD is recognized, but I have N1DOT. He's next. Go ahead.
Even with my UDRC, Mike, I have to use the Eurocall field to do the halt and shutdown. So I got 3 channels. I got one for talking, one for halt, one for reboot. Plus, I got the same channel programmed again.
Yep, programming it makes it so much simpler. Thanks, Ken. K6KD, go ahead. Wait a minute. Now you can go ahead.
Challenge of having the
boxes that are very popular, and you just want to fire it up once or connect together, the whatever from the point of the 5-volt adapter on forward. You just want to do it once, and having to wait is a pain, but what's another 17 seconds or so. I guess it's just a matter of getting used to it, but it's a necessary thing. Otherwise, you're going to be frustrated. Stations, please, Kia. KC5, ALH, go ahead. Hey there, Mike. Paul in Texas, and just wanted to say I have the open spot, and I take it mobile quite a bit, and I use one of those, Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapters like we've talked about on here before. I have a little carrying pouch that holds the open spot and the Wi-Fi adapter to Ethernet adapter thing, and USB cables and things, just a little small thing. And the way I do it, I do like to plug the open spot and the Wi-Fi adapter all into one device, one cigarette lighter plug that has 4 USBs coming off the cigarette lighter. So therefore, when I plug that in, of course, everything gets plugged in at one time. Now, I could pull the USBs out of the slots on the cigarette lighter, but I don't. The way I do it is I have a little 6-inch jumper cable that's an Ethernet cable, just 6 inches long, that goes between the open spot and the Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter, just a little 6-inch one. And I always leave that plugged into the Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter, but I do not leave it plugged into the open spot. That's where I disconnect it, is from the open spot. So therefore, when I power everything up, it all powers on at the same time, but the Ethernet cable is not connected to the open spot yet. So therefore, no way can it communicate with the Wi-Fi to Ethernet adapter. And about 10, 15 seconds later, I just plug in the other end of the little 6-inch jumper cable into the open spot. And never have a problem doing it that way. It works every single time. Back over to you, Mike. KC5LH. Well, when you think about it, it's no different than those of us who have a Wi-Fi, cellular provider hotspot. And I was trying to think of a better term for this particular device, but it's just, a mobile hotspot that connects to the cellular service. And you want to power that up first because some of them have a fairly lengthy power process before you plug in your hotspot and turn your radio on, if you're using that like a DVAP or a Raspberry Pi and DVAP combination. So it's really no big deal. It's just, you're just not going to have an instant on, instant off. And, come to think of it, probably it takes maybe 20 seconds for this the Wi-Fi hotspot to come up and go through the screens, and sometimes it says, hey, wait a minute, you need to do an update or this and that and the other thing, or it doesn't connect. And, I don't want the hotspot running at that point. So I think the delay is something that probably many of us are used to anyway. So why not? Thanks for that. Stations, please key up.
W6KD.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm doing a little engineering, mid-net engineering here. On Amazon, I found a 5-volt and a 12-volt version of a digital timer relay board that is just a programmable time delay. You can get a 5-volt version or a 12-volt version for $16 or $18 respectively, and you can program a delay of I saw the range somewhere, but anyway, it looks like something like that would work. The idea is that you put your key in the ignition, you start the car, and you don't have to go through a separate startup sequence for the hotspot. So so essentially your open spot would be delayed, say 20 seconds or 30 seconds after power is applied to the portable hotspot, and that way you get the Ethernet adapter, does all of its stuff and gets by the time the open spot fires up, it has a nice stable internet connection connection to connect to, and all's up and running. I actually helped a guy up in the Denver area a couple of weeks ago that was having this exact problem using the in-vehicle cellular hotspot that came with his. He had a GM vehicle with with one of the integrated vehicle hotspots in it, and he couldn't make it work in the vehicle, and it turned out to be exactly that. Is that the OpenSpot was trying to get an internet connection before the vehicle had stabilized its hotspot, and ideally you want to be able to automate it so you don't have to be plugging, counting the 17 and plugging in USB adapters. It should be as simple as putting the key in the ignition and starting the car.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would make it easier, especially if you've got all the equipment already set in your vehicle, like I do. I don't carry anything to or from it. It's just all there. But I have to play with power cords because sometimes I want to charge one device or I want it to fire up first. And so anyway, before I forget, you described the use of the ISO power from West Mountain Radio, but you also mentioned another device called the Super Power Gate. Does that have a separate purpose? W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, the Super Power Gate is actually what I use, and what that is it's essentially this. My interpretation is that it's essentially the same thing as the ISO power, with the addition of a 3-stage smart charger built in as well. So the ISO power basically it serves to it disconnects and isolates the auxiliary battery from the ship battery or the vehicle's battery when there is no when there's no generator alternator voltage. So when the voltage drops below some threshold, probably around 13 volts or whatever, then there's no then the aux battery is running whatever is connected to its load independent of the vehicle's power system, which prevents you from running down your vehicle battery. The power gate does essentially the same thing, except that it has its own integrated charger. So you can put 13.8 volts on the input there, and it independently charges the aux battery with a 3-stage taper charger, so that rather than just applying the vehicle's operating voltage, it's actually doing a smart charge on your auxiliary battery. So it's a little bit more sophisticated and as a result more costly as well.
Got it. All right. Appreciate it. Stations, please key up.
01 Hotel November, just saying howdy. Nice to hear everybody up, nice and clear tonight, and looking forward to watching the podcast from Dayton.
Well, hey, Brian. I'm glad you're able to join us. And what podcast? There's about 142 that are being talked about and perhaps being uploaded from Dayton. Which one in particular are you interested in listening to? Z0118, go ahead.
Well, I like to see what's happening with D-Star. I'm not sure of all of them. I just had a look on their website today and mentioned about some podcasts and also some live video footage. So I tuned into that the last 2 or 3 years and thought, I wish I was there. I know that there's at least 3 ZLs that have gone. 3 from Tauranga, which is about an hour's drive from me. John, Neil, and Andrew. And there's possibly one or two others I heard saying they were going to go. Well, I'm just unpacking here a ID 51 plus 2, or 2 plus, I think they have it. I'm just in the process of putting some frequencies in. So that's my new toy. And I'm also looking to see what ICOM might launch at Dayton. I heard a rumour that they've got a couple of new things, so we'll have to see how good the rumour mill is. Over.
All right. Well, I heard podcast, and I didn't catch the plural, the S. So my question probably didn't make any sense to you. Yeah, there's a lot of them, and for someone like yourself, including me, that can't attend this year, the streaming videos are sometimes fun. Vendors offer them, ICOM included, but they aren't on all the time, and there are guys running around with helmet cams, and there'll be probably a lot of stuff loaded up to YouTube, and it's especially now that you can do live streaming video on Twitter and Facebook and other digital media that might be one way to not even have to worry about saving it and uploading it later or trying to set up some sort of streaming video channel. You just although the YouTube streaming channel isn't that big of a deal, but heck, just on your Twitter, or I mean on your cell phone, just go to Twitter or whatever, and just do Facebook and just start streaming it, and don't make apologies. It's always fun. And then there's certainly reflectors that may be active, but I kind of cruise around and I let them live Dayton for me to absorb as time goes by. So sounds like fun. I'm glad that you're as excited as many of us are. I don't know about new stuff. ICOM, I have not heard of anything new unless it's going to be HF gear. They have a lot of potholes in their HF product line, and maybe there's something else that non-D-Star that will be coming out. I know they're going to be promoting the 4100A, but I'm just guessing. All we have to do is wait, a few more hours, and we'll find out when they open the doors tomorrow. At least tomorrow for me, which tomorrow's Friday. Thanks for being with us, Brian. Stations, please key up.
AG6WK.
AG6WK, go ahead.
Oh, good evening, Mike and Lynette. Been listening for a bit. Great net tonight. I was just going to resurrect a little bit of a discussion on the MMDVM and kind of think back history and where we are today with it. Let me unkey. And I was just curious about something, back to just a little bit of the nuts and bolts of, originally I think one of the big things, and it has happened, is the GMSK chip was written in software more or less, and could run on stuff like Raspberry Pis and whatnot to, make that all work. But the question I had is, generally, if anyone asks, more or less, I think we say that the MMDVM, supports all the bands, at least for the digital, or, the 440, 2 meter, and now 220. But I was curious, I would think because we're using an audio board now, which is a lot simpler, but can connect to almost any radio. Is the MMDVM really limited to just those bands? Of course, unless it's an RF version of some sort, but I'm talking about if it's working on a mobile radio. So I thought I'd throw that out as a question. This is AG6WK back in that N6HKH.
Well, I have a question. Where else would you want the MMDVM based access point to go? And you're using the term band, so band wise, what do you have in mind? AG6WK, go ahead.
N1BO.
Well, you know, I mean, if you look at MMDVM and the Yahoo groups, for example, you know, a lot of course, a lot of radios are thrown out there, right? You know, hey, I want to try this, and part of that I know is about, you know, are we going to have the right levels on the board to support whose ever radio? We pulling the signals out from the right place. So really, I don't know if maybe that's my question. Because what I'm really saying is it's sort of open-ended in a way. But if should I dare say, you know, if I'll throw it out there, has anyone tried running an MMDVM on an HF radio? And well, I don't know. Maybe I'm going somewhere where I'm not sure, but that would be more like the 7100, I guess. So back to you, Mike. Does that clarify it at all?
No, but that's all right. N1DOT, go ahead.
N1DOT. The I unkeyed the button here. The MMDVM is nothing more than a modem. It's totally dependent on the radio you attach it to. If you're using a single radio, it operates in what they call in DMR, DMO mode, direct mobile operation. D-Star Simplex and Fusion and G25 Simplex mode. Using them on HF, you're limited by the bandwidth. Right now, the only mode that's narrow enough that the MMDVM supports just happens to be D-Star, which is 6.25 kilohertz. Fusion, it runs at 12.5 kilohertz, and DMR also uses 12.5 kilohertz with the entire channel because they divide it into 2 time slots and they use time division multiplexing. But you're only limited by the transceiver you hook it to. If you wanted to create a D-Star repeater on 220, you hook it up to either a Bridgecom radio or a Bridgecom repeater, a full duplex. For D-Star uses a full duplex. You want to run, 2 meter or 440, you hook it up to a DL1X repeater. They work very well for that, and they support all the modes that the MMDVM supports, which is P25, D-Star, DMR, and Fusion, with their various gateways, all running on a Raspberry Pi, and the modem and modem code runs on the firmware of an Arduino. But it's all dependent on what you attach to it for a transceiver. If you want to make up a repeater configuration, then it requires 2 radios. You need one for your input, one for your output, one for your receive, and one for your transmit, and one DOT.
All right, Ken, well, that clears that up. So AG6WK, apparently there's your answer. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Ken, N1DOT. This is AG6WK. Yeah, it sounds like because you can think of the analog board separately where you have to set the levels, but, then I'm hearing mention about the encoding and the bandwidth, and that gives me a better understanding, and it sounds like, you can experiment anyway, but, and I know the roundtable here is about V-Star, and we talk about that stuff, but, sometimes we use hardware that may do more than we may think. So, anyway, that does answer my question, and thanks again. N6HKH, AG6WK, back to net.
All right, Barry, thanks. Stations, please key up. All right, didn't get anybody. We're in the kind of an open question, open topic segment here on the roundtable, and it's we've been doing this for about an hour, and it ran off in some interesting directions. We're coming up on 10 o'clock my time, which means we've been running about 3 hours, which frankly is nothing, but at the same time, we are limited by the number of stations that are either in bed getting ready to head off to Dayton, are heading off to Dayton, or are at Dayton, although there's a lot of other things too that, people may be planning now for the Memorial period. You never know. So I hate to launch into a new topic, and thus I'm going to probably see if there's anything further in the way of questions or potential topics. You can have questions that just haven't been answered, or if you'd like to clarify some information that you've heard during the course of this roundtable, that's good for us as well. And we'll simply take that until we're done. So if there are questions or topics, let's do that now. If not, then I'll probably consider bringing the roundtable to a close. But let's just see what interests lie and make sure we've caught everybody. By the way, if you keyed up and I did not recognize you, please key up again. I didn't do it on purpose. But sometimes it does happen. I don't miss much, but I just didn't want to leave anybody in the dust if that was the case. So all of the above, please key up.
WB6OVH.
WB6OVH. Welcome. Go ahead.
Evening, Mike and Annette. I've been enjoying it for the last hour or so. And a question has developed. I have what appears to be a battery. It's an MOPHIE, and I tried to search it on the internet, and I think it's called a juice pack. MOPHIE juice pack. And I had planned on using that sort of as an insulator in front of my Raspberry Pi and DVAP plugged into the cigarette lighter to keep the battery charged. Is anyone familiar with that particular? I don't know where I got the battery. I think it's called a MOPHIE juice pack.
W6KD recognized. And so, real quick, Gordy, what is your question about it? Assuming that somebody has that and knows about it. I mean, I've heard of the juice pack mentioned here before, but what is your question concerning that battery? If we get somebody that can respond to it, WB6OVH, go ahead.
Well, it has two connectors. One connector for charging the battery, which will go out to a USB port, and then a USB port itself, which to me says that I could plug another device into that USB port to keep it powered up. But not having any documentation, I'm not real sure. Everything I look at on the internet talks about just using it on a cell phone, and I was thinking about using it with the DVAP and the Raspberry Pi.
Sure, got it. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, the Mophie juice pack is a very popular lithium-ion field recharger for cell phone. That's what it's designed for. They're not all the same. Many, in fact, I would suggest probably most of them will not allow you to power devices from the output ports while it's being charged. So if you plug a wall wart into it, or a vehicle, or a 5-volt output from a vehicle, from a 5-volt regulator, a vehicle charger, basically. As soon as you plug it into the juice pack, if it's like most of the ones I've messed with, the outputs will drop because the circuitry for charging the battery is not robust enough to both charge the battery and power the load at the same time. So what you have to do, pretty much, if you don't have the manual, you're going to have to just basically trial and error it. So plug a device into one of the USB ports, and then plug a power source into the charging port and see if it drops. If it doesn't, you got one of the ones that works well, and you know, and that would that would do the job for you. You could plug your you know, you get a cigarette lighter style recharger, plug that into your juice pack, and then plug your Raspberry Pi hotspot into the output of the juice pack, and that would act as a portable power, you know, as a you know, buffering power supply or whatever, you know. So when you shut the vehicle off, you would still be powering your Raspberry Pi. But unfortunately, most of them won't do that. Most of them will actually shut off when you put power on the charging port on the juice pack. With that said, they are very useful for powering a portable hotspot. Those, you know, the power density on those lithium batteries is pretty high. So I've got a either 12 or 20,000 milliamp version that'll run a Raspberry Pi based hotspot for about 16, 18 hours. So anyway, back to that W6 Kitty.
And one DOT with a small plane.
N1.
Bob, I'm glad you're able to help, and so can N1 DOT. Go ahead.
All the other small planes, you got to watch it out. You got to watch out for this. On a lot of these portable power packs, the outputs are current limited. You know, like one USB port might only put out 1 amp. Another one might put out between 2 to 3 amps. So you got to be careful of that. Not all the USB outputs are created equal, because they are designed primarily for cell phone recharging. I know I've got one that's a 4,000 milliamp, and one port is rated for 1 amp, the other one is rated for 5 volt for 2 amp. So I got to watch that when I go to plug them in, because they are, and you've got to be careful when you're powering them with Raspberry Pis, especially Pi 3s, because they recommend at least 2.4 amps to power a Pi 3. You can get away with 2 amps of power for a Pi 2, but for a Pi 3, you gotta have that 2.4 amps, because it's got other stuff on it like the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. Most people disable the Bluetooth when it comes to using it with hotspots, particularly when you're running with DV magnets. And one DOT.
And that's very true. Although there are power battery packs with 2 USB connectors, which are rated to charge while operating, and they're very plain about it. You usually pay more money for it. But you know, it's always best to charge up your battery pack ahead of time and just have it ready to go, so you don't have to worry about it. But there's a number of them out there that, because I was concerned about that when I bought my first battery pack for my first portable, you know, Raspberry Pi DVAP portable hotspot, and I wanted to slap a battery pack on it and be able to, of course, show it off. These things were brand new devices that are just new ways of connecting with D-Star and reflectors back then, and the battery packs were clunky and big and had covers, but there were those that were rated to power out, and you could power them up at the same time with no loss of voltage. You know, there may be some loss of power, but well, anyway, they're out there. But I agree that probably the majority of them do not, at least some of the older models. Appreciate it, guys. All right, let's keep it going if we can. Anybody with questions or suggested topics, or if you want to comment on what you've heard thus far, let's take it now. Please key up.
N1 DOT, I'm going to unlink.
N1 DOT W6K.
All right, goodbye, Ken. And W6KD, hello again.
Yeah, I just looked at the juice pack that I have, and it's in very tiny print on the back. It says 2 times 2.4 amps. So the one I have anyway, it has dual ports the last time I put an ammeter on a Raspberry Pi 3, it was drawing, and that was with a external Wi-Fi dongle on it, which draws more power than the onboard one, but it was running in the 1.1, 1.2 amp range. With the program up and running, and that by the way was with a DV Mega sitting on it too. So yeah, I mean, you want something that's rated at 2+ amps so that the voltage doesn't droop. The other thing to remember on these juice packs is that the current capacity is quoted at the nominal voltage of the lithium-ion battery, which is 3.3 volts. The output is obviously at 5 volts, so you have to. Typically, what they do is they use a voltage doubler and then a voltage regulator to bring it back down to 5 volts, which is both of those processes are pretty lossy. So figure on probably 40 to 50% of the rated amperage at 5 volts, practically speaking. So if it says, 20,000 milliamp hours, it's really probably going to be more like 10,000 milliamp hours at 5 volts. And you don't want to run these things all the way down if you can help it, because in fact, about 50% is ideal. If you run them all the way down, the battery life will be much, much less than if you take a more conservative approach and run them down to about 50% before you take them off and charge them again. So back to that W6K.
So any idea how long some of these battery packs, especially the older ones that came out, let's say over 5 years ago, and just have, for many, just sat there and never really were put to use, occasionally recharged, but, it was more of a backup just in case, to be able to take it out of the car and show it to others at a meeting, which, doesn't happen too much anymore because it's more ho-hum, but still. Does there come a point when you should think about jettisoning it, or is there a way to test to see if the battery is just, kaput? W6KD, go ahead.
W6K.
I can't seem to keep my thumb on the button tonight. Anyway, all lithium-ion batteries that I'm aware of anyway, all of the various chemistries, and there are a number of them, degrade over time. And that degradation occurs faster if the battery is allowed to sit in a hot environment, so heat is not your friend. And it will occur faster also if the batteries are deep cycled. Or if the batteries are stored fully charged. That's another one, is that if you have one, you're not using it, and most of us are, I don't know, I like to keep my batteries fully charged, and that's what I always did with my NiCads and nickel metal hydride batteries. Well, if you do that to lithium batteries, you noticeably reduce their life. The ideal storage conditions for most lithium batteries, or most of the batteries that we would be using in these devices, is somewhere between 40 and 50% at a temperature just above freezing. You don't want to freeze them because the water in the cells, if it's allowed to actually freeze and crystallize, it'll actually mechanically damage the cells. But so anyway, how do you tell if it's gone too far? Unless you have some, specific test equipment, and there's not a lot of test equipment that'll work with a USB connector. You could always cut a cable apart and make your own, I guess. But ultimately, the proof of the pudding is going to be how long can it carry a load. And if so it should be simple as plugging a Raspberry Pi or whatever into it and timing how long till it gets to half charge or whatever. If it's if it only takes an hour to get down to half of the charge of the battery pack, it's probably on its way out. But that's the best way is to just measure is just make an ad hoc measurement of the ability to carry a load over time. If and I don't like taking them below 50% because you deep cycle them and that's probably the worst thing you can do to it, short of leaving it out in the sun in your vehicle in Arizona in the summer or something. So that's what I would do. Just try to plug it into a test load and measure it. See how long it lasts. From fully charged down to 50%. If it's reasonable, then you can keep using it. Back to the nut, W6 Kitty.
All right, that's helpful. Appreciate it. Stations, please key up. All right, nobody keyed up, didn't see anything, so let me just issue the usual warning that we are likely near to the end of this edition of the Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable. And as always, there are stations that, for reasons that are good and but seldom are, told to me, key up at the last minute. And no big to-do. But if that's you, it will be a big to-do if you wait too long. So any final thoughts, words, or updates? If you just joined us and didn't get a chance to listen to the podcast, well, I'm not sure what to tell you, but if you've been listening to the entirety and just the point was missed, we'll be happy to take you now. Just beware, though, that we may be ending the roundtable soon. So with that in mind, stations, please key up.
A W6KD.
I have AA0RX and W6KD AA0RX. Go ahead.
Just want to say 7-3 at the whole net, and we'll catch you guys later. I'll get about 4 hours and see if we can tear up some deals. 7-3, everybody. AA0RX. Keep digital voice modes fun and enjoyable for everybody.
Indeed. And listen, if there's a spectacular deal, maybe send out an alert or tweet or something, or tweet, I mean. And, I bet there are people that'd be happy to send you, because even though they don't know who you are, other than on the radio, their credit card number, and, buy up some for them, or not. Enjoy, and feel free to key up and give reports. I'm going to have everything up and running because I really like to hear what's going on at Dayton, and wish I was there. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, well, speaking of Dayton, it's my understanding that Bill, KC8YQL, is going to be selling ARRL beanies with lightning arresters on the top. I'm not sure what booth number that is, but you should keep an eye out for it just in case those thunderstorms hit.
Yeah, he's the one guy that is just challenges people. You're coming to Dayton. It's almost as if, why wouldn't you? And, get over to the Drury Inn. I'll buy you a beer and blah, blah, blah. And I don't expect him to, drop what he's doing. I'm not sure I want a station that may be, drunk on the air. Not that he would, but he's quite the cheerleader, and he would be the guy to try to keep the fun going in the party by handing out lightning arrestor-based beanie hats or hard hats. Because what's a little thunderstorm mean to the Dayton party? So I'm going to have to take a look at the radar to see what it is looking like. It was earlier supposed to be rain and thunderstorms I certainly hope not, but wow. They now have an event that's more outdoor than indoor this year, and that would put a damper on things. Thanks for the update and the suggestion, and if I hear Bill, I'll suggest that to him. Stations, please, Kia. All right, well, I guess a word to the wise for those out at Dayton is keep your powder dry, and just don't let some rain stop you from those hot deals and seeing what you want to see and listening to who you want to listen to at the forums and being available to challenge them if you think something just doesn't sound right. But it's more fun to be there than anything else. So I think we'll end for tonight. The shout box, well, actually, now that I've noticed, let me refresh this. I don't think anybody posted anything on the shout box. That's a first. I mean, we have some posts that were from earlier this week with a question and answer, but nothing else. And I don't know how that could have happened. I just refreshed the screen. Well, that's fine. Nobody wants to shout. Well, we didn't have any URLs or the things we would use it for, so that's fine. Anyway, what you see there is going to be gone in about 15 minutes and move to the shout box history. So those that may be listening on a recording other than the podcast, because if you download the podcast through Podcast Player, you'll get the shout box automatically. But nevertheless, we'll start the shout box anew, and feel free to post suggestions and questions and comments. If you want to start a thread about a current topic or development, it's probably better to put that in the current discussions folder, because the shout box is just what it is. It's for chatting, and nothing sticks. It scrolls off after a number of posts, and important and interesting stuff is lost. So, but I take a look at it, and feel free to post anything there. And if you're at Dayton, there's something, like there's a stream video, or ICOM is, going to put on a special display that's streaming, you can post it there and let us know. The podcast of tonight's roundtable is usually up fairly quickly, but no later than noon on Friday, although KK6MYS, who handles that, is pretty good about getting it up earlier than later. Feel free to visit us on the constellation of X reflectors. You'll see the list at the top of the Roundtable Forum Board page, the landing page, found easily by just typing around a table, all one word, .tech, TECH, in your favorite browser, and you'll see it, and you'll see all the reflectors, and feel free to come on over, especially if things are dull where you usually hang out. Come on over and see if it can be at least less than the dullness that you were experiencing, but I suspect there will be usually there's someone around to talk to. I don't think I have any more, although, hang on. We will start off next Thursday's roundtable with stations that have offered to give us a rundown about Dayton, talk about some of the forums and the things that you just can't get by watching a stream or looking at a photo or maybe listening to a podcast of a forum presentation. And what they hear, who they talk to, and what rumors and scuttlebutts can be confirmed and what can be simply discarded is always fun to, hear and their impressions about Dayton, especially if it was a soggy, muddy mess. And we'll certainly do that next Thursday, along with a discussion of anything new devices, new releases, things that are only announced at Dayton that supposedly we're not supposed to know about. We'll talk about that next Thursday. So with that in mind, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and, look forward to talking to you on D-Star. My throat is just about gone, so this is a great time to do that. I think all the stations are keyed up, because without your participation, there would be no roundtable. So, without further ado, time for me to take a break. I'll be back here a little bit later, allowing just a little bit of space for stations to unlink if they choose to do so. And we'll see you all on D-Star. in 6HKH. Good night.